What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the All Smith Project. I'm pumped up today. Today, I have one of my favorite point guards on the planet on today's podcast. He's my high school point guard. He's one of the best facilitators on the planet. He's a former NBA player, current entrepreneur, and an NCAA champion. None other than Larry Drew Jr. What's up, man?
What's up with you, bro?
Dude, I'm pumped to have you down.
That was a hell of an intro. I appreciate that.
Dude, it's one of those things, though, that, I don't know, it just feels so right that we've made this happen now.
Yeah.
And seeing your face, seeing you in the flesh, knowing that you're healthy, you're wealthy, you're doing all the things that light your heart on fire. I'm pumped to have you here, man. What does it mean to you, the fact that we've been able to maintain a friendship through all the peaks and valleys of life and just to be able to reconnect now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks to our generation as millennials kind of coming early, right? There was no social media. There was very limited, I think, interconnectivity and what we were allowed to do, when we were in middle school, in high school. I mean, AOL chat rooms and, it was the very early
Instant
stages.
Messenger, man.
Right. But having the chance to keep up with you and kind of follow you on, on Instagram and watch you kind of evolve, it's a very delicate, balance, because you never want to assume people or what they're going through or what they've been through based off of social media. But from what I can tell, it's been exciting.
Nice, man. I really appreciate you saying that. It just is a testament to the depth and connection that we have as human beings and friends. Something that comes to mind when you say that is 3 words: seek to understand. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people see things on social media and they just make an assumption, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Larry's got this or Bryce is this. Oh, and it's the fact that you actually have the humility to pause and it's no, that's what these people choose to show. Mm-hmm. And then there's layers deeper to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost spiritual. I feel like the transfer of information, it's something that needs to be, I think we need to honor that a little bit more. In like you're saying, what people do choose to put out on social media, it's not always... not necessarily that it's not always anything. I just think as consumers, as people who take in content, we should do more to, I think, remember that these are people on the other side who are making conscious decisions.
Dude, we're cut from the same cloth. I love that you say that. Something that I think about often is, we're going to dive deep into professional sports and professional basketball and the life of an athlete. And it's before loving people for their function and what they do, yourself included, you're actually a human being first. Mm-hmm. You and I put our pants on the same way. You got to sleep. You crave love. You got to eat. You crave, the ability to just associate and orient in the environment. Yeah. And I think sometimes the world absorbs and views professional athletes oh, you're being paid this, so you just need to deliver this. And it's this insurmountable amount of pressure.
Definitely. I grew up in it. The expectations of a pro athlete and the fact that you're getting paid more money than, the average teacher to play a game, right? There's a level of, kind of just shut up and dribble, I guess. Yeah. But, what I recognized, again, with social media and the information kind of, it's like a revolution, if you will. Just people are so accessible, information is so accessible, content is accessible. So it's if I don't get my hit of dopamine, or if I don't get, a story spun exactly how I need it to hear it, to get that hit, or if I don't find something of, if I can't relate to, then I just go to the next piece of content, and people are only searching for what they are maybe subconsciously or unconsciously craving, and it's not always healthy. I feel like it is important to remember that these posts, these captions, these profiles, these are people at the end of the day. It's getting crazy because you got bots, you got you really want to
AI,
get
tons
into
of
like
artificial
you really want to get
intelligence.
into like the depths of the conversation, but that's why I say it's spiritual, because at the end of the day, it really is about discernment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't take the time to discern between meaningful information, you have to understand, just like anything else in life, there are going to be forces that try to deter you from your goal, and you have to focus. You have to have discipline. You have to have a sense of due diligence to stay on track. And, you know, like Kobe, this Mamba mentality is 1% better. Try to find things to clean up, but it starts with accountability. If you're not holding yourself accountable for allowing maybe yourself to, you know, fall into a zone or a mode of, you know, everything I'm seeing is negative. Everything I'm seeing is somewhat depressing. You know, I use my block button often. I use my mute button. Like if I don't want to see something, you know, I have control over that. That's kind of just like what I remind myself on a day to day, you know.
Totally. In my world, I kind of call that CTC, control the controllable. And the other thing that's so important about that is, like, we talk about nutrition often on this podcast, and nutrition isn't just what you eat.
Right.
It's all the things that you consume, what you watch, what you
Absolutely.
hear, what you listen to, the 5 people you choose to spend your most time with.
Yes.
And dude, it's so cool to hear the different evolutions of what you're saying. And for people that don't know, I got to say this like fucking directly to the camera. Guys, we're with greatness today. This is one of the best point guards to ever do it, in the sense that he understood true facilitation. It was understanding energy. There's an intuitive approach to this where it's like, yeah, that person might be open, but their energy's not right. I'm going to hit them over here because their energy's right, ready to receive, ready to make a play, ready to create. And that revolutionized not just basketball, but my perception on the world. At fucking, you and I met each other at 14 years old, where it's like, we're just absorbing the world. We're chasing girls. We're trying to like figure out how we fit in high school.
Yeah.
You know, there's hormonal changes. We're trying to figure out like
So many changes in high school, man. And like when I when I got to high school, I had just actually switched over from like private school to public school.
Yep. You moved,
I
from
moved-
Washington
yeah.
back to LA. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a big change too.
Well, yeah, I grew up in LA my whole life. My pops got the job in DC working with the Wizards. My family, we moved out there for 2 years, and then we moved back. When we moved back, I ended up going to Portola, which was a public school. It was my first public school experience. I had been in private my whole life, and I just remember feeling like I wanted more of a dose of reality. And so like
Private school shelters you from that a little bit.
yeah, for sure. And like the majority of my friends were like, yeah, you know, going to Taft, and you know, Jordan and Derek were prevalent figures, you know, in my
Pause
life
for
at that
one
time.
moment just to give a little context. So Larry
Tried to
ended up
slide that in.
going to Portola Middle School, which was a middle school in Los Angeles County. At that time, I was going to Hale Middle School, which is a little bit, I don't know, 5 or 6 miles from Portola. I kind of knew of him. He was, you know, revolutionary within the space. His father had played for the Lakers for a little while. When he mentioned his father, he was a big guy in the NBA space for a long time.
Well, he's been in the league for like 43 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many years did your father, Larry Drew, play in the NBA?
He played 10 years. He played from 80 to 90. I was born 90. He had
90s,
just
baby.
finished. Yeah, he had
90s,
just finished.
baby.
He had just finished playing with the Lakers, and then immediately became a scout right after he retired. Did 1 year scouting service, and then became an assistant coach. So I was born 90. Went to all the Lakers home games from 90 to 97, and it was just NBA all day.
You were part of an NBA family, which, just to give people context, like, you have positives and negatives with that. The positives are the exposure, being able to absorb the lessons, the energy from your father, and just being around, you know, guys like Nick Van Exel, Damon Stoudemire, like watching things.
So
in the
glad
back.
you said Nick first too, because it's like
He was a stud.
Nick was probably the first. So my dad, one of the things that he did for me as a kid, I remember we had this Suburban with the TVs in the back, like early 90s, you know, when that was becoming a whole thing. And I remember just driving around and having this cassette that my dad had, the Lakers video coordinator. He was like, we were ahead of our time. Like compilation, like highlight compilation tapes, like crossovers, dunks. But my favorite player before Kobe got to the Lakers was Nick. So from like 90, like I remember like 92, 93, I was 2, 3 years old, and I remember kind of starting to watch and study guys. Nick was the first player that was really, really exciting to me that I tried to like copy. And so he made like this Nick Van Exel like highlight tape, and it was like my favorite compilation tape to this day.
What's so cool about that is like the rhythm, the pace, the ability to change speed and change direction.
That's what it is. It's change speed, change directions. Like like you see so much dancing in the game today, and you said it out here in the lobby. I'm like, there's just so much wasted motion in the game. But my dad, that's how he always described it to me. It was never about a crossover. It was never about, you know, trying to get oohs and ahs. It was just learn how to change speed, learn how to change directions, and then mix up your moves, basically.
Yeah.
Second,
I remember him talking about that the few times I got to spend time with him, and just like also another thing that I absorbed from you, Derek, who was our coach at Taft High School, used to say this a lot. Never get too high, never get too low. And it was just like, I don't know, you see the videos that go viral now on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram of Tom Hanks saying, "This too shall pass." And it's like, there was a time our senior year, we were number 1 in the country for a little while.
We were.
And it's like, you know, at that time, it's like everybody on our team was getting all kinds of letters. Like, we were loved. And then it was like 5 weeks later, we lost the game. And all of a sudden, it's like nobody wanted to talk to us. We were like the bottom of the ocean. And I've heard you talk about it before with a statement from Pat Riley. And it's like, man, basketball can take you to the top where everybody loves you. And it's like the perceived bottle service, and you're making the money and you're doing the thing. And then it's like real quickly you're at the bottom and nobody cares.
Yeah, it's balance, man. Like
lightness and darkness, yin to the yang, hot with cold.
You gotta just it's beautiful. I like competition. You know what I mean? Two opposing forces. You know, you gotta cheer for one of them. You know what I mean? Like otherwise, you know, there would be nothing if there were no force to drive anything. So it's like when you have two teams, right, and like the objective is to win. You know what I mean? Like you put your all into preparing, into you know, studying, into, you know, getting your body right, and you go out there and you lose a game that you feel like you should have won. How do you talk to yourself? You know, it's again the Mamba mentality aspect, the mental, you know, approach to the game or to any competitive, you know, situation. You have to go into it. And I'll give you another quote. Pop. So when I was with
Greg Popovich,
when I was with Team USA, I want to say this was 2017, 16 or 17, for the FIBA qualifying rounds. We went to South America, so it's like, to prepare for the Olympics, they take no player on an NBA contract can play in these FIBA rounds to basically qualify for the Olympics. So what the NBA does is they get the next best group of guys from the G League. So I was a part of this G League round that went out to South America to go place for 2020 Olympics.
Wow, what an honor.
Yeah, and so Pop came to one of our practices, and at the time, Jeff Van Gundy was our coach, and he brought out Pop to one of our practices, and Pop started talking about appropriate fear, and that was one of his concepts that he says he teaches to the Spurs, or just basically anywhere he goes. But he's like, the fact that you guys are the USA and you guys are basically like at the top of the pecking order, teams are going to obviously want to beat you, but it's not just that they want to beat you because they want to win the game. It's like a cultural, like culturally what that would mean for these group of guys or for these kids from like this country. Like, you know, it's not the same as the NBA or like America, right? Where we've got all these farm systems, we've got all like these pipelines. Like in these countries, usually these kids have been playing together since they were like 8, 9, 10 years old, right? on the same teams.
Like what they talk about at their family dinners.
Yeah, yeah.
Versus like you and I talk about it in passing because we've done AAU since we were 12 years old.
It means so much more to them. So he's like, if you don't have an appropriate fear about your opponent to prepare for this game like they would, you know, then you're already doing yourself a disservice. So he's like, you have to have an appropriate fear about every situation to prepare for it. And that kind of, again, it speaks to like the balance, right? Like with that mindset, you go into it knowing you could lose. You're already accepting, if I don't have an appropriate fear, then I'm not going to prepare. Then I'm defeating myself before.
It's too much ego.
It's too much ego, right? So humble yourself before you even play to respect your opponent enough to study them and prepare for it. Like this game means everything in the world.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's a better understanding that like fear is a great motivator, but it's not going to rule our world, but it's also going to be this subtle tap on the shoulder, like prepare like a motherfucker, watch your film, do all the things that you possibly can in pursuit of maximizing your human potential. So that way, you know what? If they do win and I gave my best shot, fine.
You can live with that. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, and I think, again, like that's the balance. You're going to have that voice like, nah, man, you could have did this, you could have did that. But it's like, again, or either you did all that you could do or you left some in the tank, right? But that's up to you.
Totally. You're a UCLA guy now. Like John Wooden's favorite quote about success, knowing that you did your best to be the best that you're capable of becoming. And I think that's such a magical experience. I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but our junior year of high school, man, my neighbor worked at Tarzana Hospital, and he was helping transport John Wooden to and from his appointments to the hospital and then back to his small apartment there, pretty close to Ventura Boulevard, where we would spend some time together, close to your house, close to my house. I actually went to his house, dude, and I spent like about 3 hours just kind of picking his brain.
Really? And
just like better understanding him as a human being. And, you know, this is a famous quote, but like we got into the weeds around be quick, but not in a hurry. And like we used to talk about that often, right? Like when you're a freshman in high school, you're in a hurry, you're trying to prove everything. Like you feel all the external things, you're trying to get external validation. And then as you develop your craft, you're like, hey, you can get into my body. You can grab me, push me, pull me. And it's like, I'm even keel. I'm absorbing, I'm listening, I'm watching. And every time you make a move, like I'm going to use that to your advantage. I'm watching your feet. I'm watching your torso. And it's like, it's psychological jujitsu in some ways.
Oh, totally. It, you know, that's fast pace, you know, knowing what I know now and kind of like looking back at my life. And again, it's like, I guess it's somewhat advanced, right? Like if you don't know what to look for, or if you're not,
if you don't know what to look for, you're seeing everything.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But, like, setting the pace in basketball, or how I was taught it, right, from my dad was, you know, he broke it down. Like, everything my dad's, he broke everything down. And so you remember, like, how you used to describe, like, the gaps? You know what I'm saying? Like, one, you have to know time and score. So there's an understanding of IQ, right? Like, when to attack versus when to not attack, right? But when you talk about, you know, offense, defense, attacking, when or knowing when to attack, right? Like you're talking about dictating the pace as a point guard, given that the point guard is the one with the ball the majority of the time, or at least this is what it used to be, right? When we were growing up, like this is how the game was. And so any defender guarding this point guard is going to, you know, think one of two things, right? Either, oh, I can pressure this guy and cause him to speed up, or I have to respect his ability to get to the basket and attack, so I'm going to back off of this person and I'm going to try to contain this person, right? So then it's like, okay, this is the mental jiu-jitsu that you're talking about, because now with the ball as the point guard, offense-wise, you obviously dictate where you want to go before the defender knows which way you're going to go, right? So if I'm here and the defender is here, the moment, and this is what my dad taught me, he's like, the moment this guy does this, that's when you go. by this person. So there's a gap, and now it becomes like a gap game, right? In the moment that the defender tries to close this gap, that force is moving towards you. So it can't move towards you and backwards at the same time. So if you are in a position to where, you know, you guys are kind of like doing this, and then he makes this initial step towards you, that's when you go right by that guy. You know,
timing, baby.
Timing, right? And then at the same time, if you guys are, you know, at a place in which now you guys are too close, you create that space, and then now at the point in which that person takes that step, you go by him. But it's that's all basketball is. If you're a point guard, if you're somebody who dictates the pace, or if you're an attacker, right? Like you have to have a sense of the defender. Is this guy on his heels, or is this person kind of like on his toes, right? And then if he's on his heels, he's at my mercy. If he's on his toes and he's putting me on my heels, then he's winning that game. So now it just becomes a battle, you know, mental jujitsu between
Totally.
like, you know.
I love the way you described that, and something that we used to talk about a lot. I want to reference our awesome high school coach, Derek Taylor. There's so many.
I keep saying DT. Shout out DT.
Yeah, I definitely got to reconnect with him, man. Like the way he managed all our egos. All of us thought we were like God's gift to basketball.
But it's funny because he had an ego too. Like
he did.
Derek had the biggest ego out of all of us, but he was just so real. Like, you know, with social media, it's so funny because I was always like wondering like what it would be like to play for Derek in today's time, and I'm like, he would have had to have completely changed his ways.
I would have hated it. Like I actually said this recently. Like I mean, there was times where like he was like a complimentary sandwich and he just gave you so much praise, and there were other times where like he'd grab my jersey and cuss me out and say so many words that none of these cameras should see.
Yeah, no, I remember the game.
I loved it.
He waited for like we were playing in like summer. It was like we were playing at Crespi.
Yeah, is this the Eugene story?
No, this is I was guarding some kid, and he went by me, he got an and one, and Derek was like, he just waited for the kid to be shooting his free throw, and then he's like, maybe he should be going to North Carolina. He just screams and blurts it out in front of the gym. I'm like,
oh man, I really want to tell a story right now, but I don't think it's appropriate for the cameras.
No. We gotta, you know, listen, bro.
All right, we're playing Summer League. You guys will appreciate this. God, I love Derek Taylor for this. Such an awesome coach, such a great motivator. We're playing in a summer league, and we have 5 guys that are now committed to go Division I. And, you know, Larry's going to North Carolina. Eugene, who's like a high flyer, athletic freak, still playing professionally now, like 20 years after our high school career. And then we've got Turan committed to Northridge at the time. Justin Hawkins going to UNLV. I'm going to San Diego State. And then we've got like guys that like aren't getting a ton of minutes. Like Spencer Dinwiddie's still playing in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like
Mikey went to San Francisco.
Yeah, like, he was a stud too. Like we just had guys that were just like so good that would have been all-stars at any other school in the Valley. And Eugene ends up getting dogged by some guy in summer league, and like Eugene was probably, his mind was probably somewhere else. Derek calls a timeout. He pulls him to the side, and he's like, he's got so many cuss words, he doesn't know what to say. And he's like, God, you're getting fucked right now. You might as well become a hooker, so at least you get paid to get fucked.
Yeah, bro. Derek was, he was, I love Derek. That's why I wanted to go to public school. And I remember in Portola, when I was at Portola, going to see Nick and Jordan battle it out at Cleveland High School.
Yep.
And, you know, on top of
Jordan
it being
Farmer
like
and Nick Young, one of the LA rivalries.
These games were, I mean, just you won't see another gym with that kind of atmosphere.
No, because they move it now to big ass arenas, and they don't leave it in the high school like it once was.
Yeah.
Where it's like a line is going 7 blocks down the street.
Yeah, nah, it was so
packed.
lit, and I just remember like watching like Derek on the sideline, like specifically like thinking, like if this was my coach, like I would just I just would love to play for somebody like him, because I feel like he lets his guards go.
Yes.
Like, he lets his
He's
guards go.
not worried about the external validation from other people. He's in the moment.
He knows what he's looking for in his guards. I will say that, like, you know, in Derek and Jordan too, like, you know, they made sure I knew that I was going to be a Torador, you know, in that I was going to follow in Jordan's footsteps, and that I was going to, you know, be a star point guard at Taft, and then end up, you know, right there at UCLA. It was laid out, you know what I mean? And guys, you know, they don't understand, like, having that kind of a green light, you know, that kind of a supporting cast, like, if you're an athlete, just what that does, you know. I felt like, not that I couldn't do any wrong, but him allowing me to be a creator, you know, on the court, and gave me the space to mess up and make mistakes, right?
And this is where I wanted the conversation to go. I knew it would come here.
Yeah.
I've had dreams about this. I'm not kidding. Like, I'm very serious. Like, I'm incredibly passionate about where we're going with the storytelling journey. But, you know, as you know, my father passed away in 2018 to terminal brain cancer. That dude was at every single game. Was I the best player? No. Was I a hard worker? Hell yeah. Did I have all the talent? No. Did I know my role? Hell yeah. But you know what my dad gave me that nobody else gave me except for Derek Taylor and you? True belief. Knowing that, hey, I got your back no matter what. Dude, there were times, like, I was the only white kid on the basketball team for the most part, and we had a couple other guys sometimes, but it was like, going to Taft was, I didn't know anybody. That wasn't my home high school.
Right.
That wasn't a filtering space from Portola.
Right.
I didn't know anybody going there except for our crew on the basketball team. I was a lone soldier, sort of trying to just figure out in pursuit of this basketball dream. But I had this intrinsic confidence that, like, hey, I'm going to figure it out somehow, some way, whether it's taking charges, whether it's cleaning up sweat, whatever it is, I'm going to figure it out. And what I really like, looking back on our high school journey, it's like, Derek believed in you. He gave you the ball and said, go do you. You made plenty of mistakes. You also did a ton of highlight reels that in this modern day, dude, if you had a phone, oh man, like at that time, everybody that had a highlight reel, it had to be from like Ball is Life or like SoCal Hoops. Like, you had to be super fucking good to get somebody out to like make a highlight reel. Now everybody's got a highlight reel.
No, this is true. In Taft was really like a melting pot. You know what I mean? In the fact they were doing the busing and they had kids coming out from the inner city, and I really appreciated that aspect of it too, because, you know, like, personally, like, my mom, she grew up in South Central, right? She was part of the original busing program when it began. So she did a semester at Crenshaw. And then my grandma, her mom, was like, I want you to go to school in the Valley to kind of get away from all this, you know, nonsense that's going on out here during that time. So she ended up going to Birmingham and thinking like, oh, I actually like the Valley. Like, you know, I want to raise my family out here, and I want my
That's cool. I never knew that.
That's cool. So by the time I go to Taft, and it's like, you know, they're still busing, right? Like, from what I knew, Taft was like a city school. It just it was in the Valley.
For
right?
people that don't know, it's the same high school as Ice Cube and Eazy-E.
Yeah, no, that's what listen, bro. Like, people don't understand that. Yeah, Hollywood and marketing, right, it kind of creates the narrative, but like, all these guys lived in the Valley or went to school in the Valley. Like, yeah, O'Shea, Aaron, right? You know, both Eazy-E and Ice Cube's kids went to Taft, and you know, either way, like, the fact that I knew, you know what I'm saying, like, this is where I want to be. This is the kind of energy I feel like if I can manage personalities, like, if I can grow within this atmosphere and kind of just find my footing, find my way, almost like you, right? In basketball, being like that conduit where I always knew, like, this is my canvas. Like, I'm an artist. I can always paint here, and people will understand my story. You know, again, like, let your game do the talking. I wasn't like the most vocal person, but when it came to competition, like, you know, either we gonna, you know, you're gonna find out one way or another, like, why I'm very, calculated in what I say or why I move the way that I move, because one thing that I do know for a fact is I will bust your ass. Like, that's just, it is what it is. And so Derek, like, yo, I'm gonna give you this green light. We had seniors on the team, our freshman year, because you played JV and you played with Gene, that
Eugene, Javelle, like our whole crew.
JV was, so, and I remember Derek and I having a conversation about players on JV and who we wanted to kind of take a look at for varsity. Yeah,
totally.
And it was funny because you always, like you said, did everything that a coach would notice to be like, okay, yeah, we're gonna give him a chance, right? And then you just continue to work, and you became more consistent in your jump shot and your defense, and it was very obvious, right? But somebody like Eugene, it wasn't as obvious, right? Like Eugene had a lot of raw talent, but wasn't as...
He would dunk on you and then forget to play help side defense.
Yeah, he didn't understand
he developed that later.
Exactly. He developed that later. But I just remember kind of being behind the scenes with Derek, watching you guys and then being like, yeah, this is the team that, we can kind of take the steps forward that we wanted to take as a program, right? And having you, I will say, again, the way that the NBA is played now, fast paced. You remember how many threes you would shoot in the first quarter?
Oh, dude, a ton.
It would be
10 threes in the
first quarters where you would just, again, and that was the whole thing. It's you would open up games for us.
Time and space, I think, gives creators the opportunity to create.
Guys would think okay, Larry Drew and da-da-da-da, he's going to try to da-da-da, whatever. And it's I'm literally the slightest bit of help. The slightest bit of help. If I see you open, I'm literally throwing a bullet pass right into your shooting pocket, and you have to shoot it, Bryce. You see what I'm saying?
And what's so interesting is we were on the same page as far as you didn't have to say it to me. I understood. And it's if we start games that way, if I hit a couple, guess what? Guys aren't helping anymore. Now you're getting into the gap, and you're getting a bucket. Okay, now as you're getting a bucket, what's happening? Guys are helping over now from the weak side. Now you're finding a big for a dunk, or you're finding a shooter on the far side the way Luka's finding shooters. And what's so fascinating is it facilitated so well, and then it evolved.
The ball finds energy.
The ball finds energy 100%. And then but it evolved later, where it was we found creativity later on, where it's oh, now everybody's kind of picking up on the rhyme and rhythm.
Yep.
Oh, now Bryce is back cutting. Yep. Now we're getting a quick bucket. Okay, now Bryce is back cutting. Weak side's helping over. I'm finding somebody on the weak side corner for a three, and that was Justin just crushing.
It's fun. When you and that's why again, ultimately basketball is such a beautiful game, because the ball does find energy. When you get 5 players on a team that understand, you go watch, when were the Spurs making their run, that last
Tony Parker and all those guys, Patty Mills.
It was perfect basketball, from an offensive standpoint. Even Golden State, right? The way that they move it around and find their shooters, and the way Steph moves without the ball, these are.
Hold on for a moment. I really want to note on that. The whole world just notes Steph's shooting.
It's not his shooting.
When you watch him,
it's his
he's running 700 to 900 meters every single play.
Well, look, if he shot Shaq from the free throw line, then all that movement wouldn't matter. Yeah. Because nobody would care where he was.
Yep. Move fast and break shit. LSKD develops functional sportswear with a streetwear aesthetic that's on a mission to inspire you to chase the vibe through sport, fitness, and adventure. I train daily in the rep shorts and love the versatility they offer. The zipper pocket is an absolute game changer. I go from training at the gym directly to meetings, running errands, or prepping for podcasts. The LSKD tribe has become true family, and we are excited to continue to develop our community. Shop now at lskd.com and use code ALLSMITH. We chase the vibe here at AllSmith. Let's all become 1% better every day.
So yeah, the fact that he can shoot that well, is his it's his bread and butter, but I think the entree is that I'm the most conditioned athlete. And because I have an IQ and I'm not wasting motion, right? It's not that he's just running around. It's that
it's calculated angles.
Yes, like how, and it's very hard. He's sprinting hard to these, so that when he stops on the dime, the defender is flying past him because he's literally running and can stop on the dime and shoot
one of the favorite
so fast. It's
videos I've seen, and you used to do this. I'm glad you brought up Steph, because as I was driving over here today, I was thinking, like, how do I describe Larry? And it was just like poetry in motion. But that's the same way I describe Steph. And when you watch Steph's eyes, he's actually looking at the feet and the torso of his opponent, because he's not a big guy. He's not going to muscle you. He's not going to bump you. He's moving in a rhythm. And it's incredible.
It's the gap. It's the gap game. Steph knows. Again, if you give him any space, what's he going to do?
He's either going to go blow by you, or he's going to get that space.
No,
and let it go.
if he has space, he's going to shoot it. He's going to shoot a three, and it's probably going to go in. Probably. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, well, you're going to dare him to do that again. Then out of every 2 shots that Steph Curry shoots, he's more than likely going to make one, right? Yep. Like, statistically, like, I can't tell you what his career stats are, but again, it got to be some close to 45%, right? Like, yeah, that's insane to say that, like, 1 of every 2 shots you shoot, you're probably going to make one. So, again, gaps. That gap gives Steph everything he needs, because at the very moment somebody crosses that line, meaning, oh, you're going to try to close this gap, now I know I got that first step on you, and I'm going to just go by you. In the way, you know, I'm giving away so much by just saying, like, so little here. And again, like, the angle of attack, it's not about how fast you are. It's not about how many moves you can do. It's the straight, like, shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip. So, like, what you're saying is, like, when guys like Steph have the ball, they're looking at guys' feet because they want to see, like, okay, are you on your heels, or are you trying to press up on me? And then now from there, I can see, like, how I want to drive off of your body, hip to hip, or shoulder to shoulder.
I learned that so much from you. We used to do these one-on-one drills, and those L cuts, and try to get the ball. And, like, you would attack, like, you know, we'd be in a defensive stance. You would attack that front foot so well. And it wasn't just attacking the front foot, but it was also what you did with that offhand to kind of hook that leg, you know, coming off a spin move, give them that little chicken wing.
Because guys, they're so undisciplined, they reach. And totally. So, you know, I'm like, well, if you reach to try to steal the ball, I can't take your hand and just, like, parry it. I can't do that. That was it. That, you see your face right now? You know how many guys, like,
it's a pause.
I grew up playing with, like, competitively, and so many, like, I remember, like, guys going up to refs and telling, and, like, pleading, like, yo, he's holding me. Like, yo, he's holding me. And it's like, I'm not extending my arm and grabbing anybody.
You're here. They're reaching. And,
you're just, and I'm just grabbing. Yeah, I'm hold tight to your reach. And I'm going to drive my shoulder right into, like, this part of your shoulder. So now it's a foul. Or either you open up and let me go by you, or it's going to look like a foul. Yeah,
I learned a lot from those one-on-one sessions, man, getting dogged by you and Calvin. Freaking Calvin Haynes, man. That dude was a stud, too.
He was a bully, bro. But see, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was such a different time where I feel like the best players look to play with all the best players, or at least competitively against them, where now, like, in high school, the top recruits, they don't want to play against other top recruits.
That's a really good point. It's a social media culture a little bit, but I just remember at that time, I mean, I would leave, you know, Hale Middle School, and I would try to catch a couple buses and make my way to Taft to watch Jordan. Almost every Friday, that's what I did, is I would watch Jordan, and I would just, like, try to hitch a ride home, or, you know, if my parents would drop me off, it'd be awesome. But, like, I just remember, do you remember Dwight?
Of course.
We had a guy, Dwight.
Like, he's a bulldog. That's what I'm saying. Like, we had bullies. Like, our
and that's the thing year, that, like, people don't recognize, though, is, like,
Dwight used to, like, pick on me low key. But but like, on some, like, big brother, little brother kind of stuff. Totally. Because I was a freshman, he was a senior. But it's just, like, in practice, I remember trying to, like, go by Dwight, and because he was, like, so much stronger than me at that time, he would just literally, like, push me around.
Totally.
And Derek would, of course,
and
like,
that's
just go,
that's what I wanted to share with our audience today, is just, like, I don't know, like, I probably could have went to El Camino or Chaminade or, like, Oaks Christian and like tried to figure it out and like try to be the guy. But like, I just remember going to those places and I was like,
there's something here.
There, not only is there something here, but like, if I can make it here, I'm actually going to develop the life skills to either play professionally, get a scholarship, or I'm going to learn something in my life. If I go somewhere else, it's like the easy way out.
Whew, hey, yo, that's a bar. And like, it's preference. I think, like, you either shy away from contact or you absorb it, you know? And people who learn to absorb contact earlier in life, I think, they learn to, you know, life is contact.
100%. It's so contact. Weird, like, looking at that time, like, nobody really, like, my parents didn't tell me where to go or what to do. It was like they
made these choices.
They were like, hey, man, you choose.
Yeah.
And I just remember at that time, I was like, whoa.
You want the hard, you want the hard, I want to get dirty. Like, I want to get thrown into the fire. Totally. I thought the same thing.
And it was also like, I didn't have a name. I was just white boy. I only knew how to shoot. I didn't really know anything about zigzag drills or like L cuts or the fucking culture of inner city basketball. But I knew like, I'm going to learn something here. And like, if for those of you listening, like Larry and I have so much history, we could talk for the next 24 hours.
Well, we got experience. Cause like, yeah, like for us talking, we can just take ourselves right back to these moments and it makes perfect sense.
But I also want people to know, like, this gym had no air conditioning. Like, the floor was slippery as fuck.
Like no air conditioning. We had a dirt track that if we weren't running 100 miles per hour in this hot ass gym, then Derek would get mad and send us to the track to go run like more miles and then take us back inside to do more defense. It wasn't like, it was everything that you could ask for as a true hooper. Like back then, you know, we had Kobe, you know, Kobe was, you know, Laker. Like, we knew, like, it was just a cultural, the basketball culture within Los Angeles during this time, right? Early 2000s, like, you know, 2005, 2008, like it just, you look at the NBA now, right?
All these guys are still hooping,
bro,
man.
Listen, like I like every day almost, it kind of trips me out because I'm like, our homies are breaking records.
I say this
in
to
the
people,
NBA.
and people don't. They look at me like, yeah, whatever, man. You're a has-been basketball player, but like, dude, I had to write these names down. Like, Drew Holiday,
bro,
all-star, now playing for the Boston Celtics.
People like he's the coldest person I've ever played against.
Yeah,
like,
he's great.
Is Drew
His
Holiday.
brother Justin still playing in the league. Spencer Dinwiddie played with us at freaking Taft, and then like I wrote it down here. Malcolm Lee played at UCLA right before you got there. Played in the NBA for a while. DeMar DeRozan, Kawhi Leonard. Like, that guy's an NBA All-Star now with the Clippers. You look at Russell Westbrook. He was at Lusinger when we were running the Santa Monica stairs and the sand dunes together.
James Harden. I got to the Artesia game at the second quarter, not riding the bus, took the trip with my mom. Like, I knew it. I'm like, Mom, please be on time for this game. She's just like, she and Derek was, I don't know what it was, bro, but I got to the game, second quarter, we was already down like 20 points, bro. But James was out here, PG.
Paul George, crushing it. And it's like, you look at a lot of these guys, and it's like, we have like personal experiences with them. Pump and run camps, Adidas camps, going to UCLA basketball camp.
But see, like, and that was when you started tapping in. Like, I've known these guys since before then. Like, freaking Eddie Jones basketball camp. Freaking
Basketball Avenue back in the day with Jason Pruitt.
Bro, like, there's so many just grassroots, like, programs in Los Angeles that gave kids, right, the opportunity. And, you know, it's not like football where you need pads and, you know, all kinds of other people to own your skills, right? Like basketball, you just need a ball and a hoop and some shoes, right? If you got them, but you know,
well, it's also like, if I was hungry, I'd go to the park and try to play a little one-on-ones, try to make a couple bucks to go to a fast food restaurant. Literally,
you know, shooting for money, like, and not shooting dice, right? Like, there were guys who would shoot dice, right? Like at the school, but I would. I remember Mikey Williams, like, him taking my money and me just being like, bro, this isn't right. Like, you're on JV. Mike Williams was somebody who came up, you know, JV, ended up on varsity. the city championship game. I want to say how many threes he hit against Fairfax.
So many.
Just, again, like,
just
you know,
a stud.
And yeah, just having opportunities to, like.
He played at the University of San Francisco for a little while in the WCC, in the West Coast Conference, and I'm sure probably played overseas for a little while.
He's been overseas cooking. He was in the G League too for a little bit. But I want to reiterate just the difference in, like, again, society at that point. There's no social media. There's no, like, it's very, I think it was SoCal Hoops and Rivals as far as, like, where you're going to get your information, your basketball information from, right? But guys were so much more, I think, competitive and looking to compete against the top talent. And the reason why Taft was so, you know, the culture there was so special was because you had so many people who were willing to, like, well, I mean, again, it's like guys like Dwight didn't really have a choice. Guys like Ronell didn't really have a choice because they were being, you know, they were being bussed. But, you know, we had a decision that we could make, right? As far as, like, where did we want to go to school? Like, I chose Taft, and the reason why I chose Taft was because I knew Calvin was there. And I knew Calvin, when I used to play one-on-one against Calvin, like, I just remember thinking something, because again, like, I would guard Calvin at the top of the key, and he would, like, jab step and, like, make a move, and then, like, one dribble, and I would turn around, and he would, like,
tomahawk
he
dunk.
would, like, have, like, LeBron. He would look like LeBron, like, dunking.
Just to
as,
give
like,
people context, Calvin Haynes was a little older than Larry and I, and a lot of the culture at Taft was one-on-ones. And it wasn't so
guard
much.
play, hard, just guard play.
And,
like,
it was like not dancing. You got 1-2 dribbles max to make a play. And we had guys that were tomahawk dunking in 9th, 10th, 11th grade, obviously as seniors. But it was one of those things where it was before social media culture, where it was one of those things where, like, you and I would go to
there was
class.
no phones, like, there was none of that. It was like people were just locked in, like,
yeah, but
oh,
you know
my
what else
gosh,
it was?
did he just
Like, from a core standpoint, it was like man to man.
Yeah.
Oh, you got me, I'm going to get you back. Or it's like, you made that play, I'm going to make your life miserable on this next play. And it wasn't about trying to do it for the external validation.
Yeah.
It was like, just no, I don't want to hear you talk shit to me
competition,
tomorrow.
yeah.
Let's figure this out now. And it was also at that time simultaneously where it's like you had Kobe and Pau doing their thing. Magic Johnson was coming to our games. We also saw, like, USC and Pete Carroll kind of doing their thing. And that whole mentality that Derek, who was our coach at the time, stole a little bit was like, next man up. Oh, you can't figure it out? Cool. You're going to sit. We're going to bring the next level of talent. And there was no shy of talent at Taft. It was just like, dude, the next guy's up.
Yeah. I mean, we were dogs. That's all it come down to. You know, iron sharpens iron. Derek did a great job of creating a culture there where dogs wanted to go there.
It was family, though. Like, there were days where I hated you, and then there were days where I loved you.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. I think all of us felt that way in some capacity. I loved Eugene sometimes, didn't want to speak to him for a week other times. And then it was like,
Gene busted my whole face open in at lunch one time, and I remember just thinking, like, and he didn't even apologize. He didn't even act like he did anything. Like, we ditched class one day. Do you remember when I busted my lip?
I don't remember.
You don't remember that? And I had like, bro, it was just crazy, bro. Like,
but that is the livelihood of family. Like, you have that with your parents, you have that with your siblings, and it was true love in the sense of, like, I remember, like, getting in a fight with somebody at nutrition sometimes. Somebody took, like, this chocolate milk and threw it over, and it, like, landed on me and my friend's shoes. And I remember just walking over, like, what was the purpose of that? And the dude spit in my face. And, like, you know me, I pretty much have my temper controlled. I lost my temper, just punched the guy in the face. And
what year was it?
I think it was our 11th grade year.
Junior?
Yeah. And, like, I just punched him in the face, and the guy fell down. It was like, dude, I'm going to get all my friends when you walk to your car after school, blah, blah, blah. And I just remember after school, like, I told Richard Sims, who was, like, a guy on our team that was, like, an incredible, like, rebounder and screen setter and just, like, a guy
Rich
full
was
of
a
talent.
bully.
Totally. But, like, but it wasn't just him. It was, like, him, like, Turan, who was, like, our awesome power forward. We had the entire football scene. We had the entire football team, too, that was, like, I wasn't somebody that just like acted volatile. It was purposeful around principle.
Yeah.
Like you did something that was like completely unwarranted. Yes, I lost my temper, but it's like you and your friends aren't going to beat me up. You're not gonna shoot.
KYG, KYP. That's
Totally.
all it come down to. You knew your personnel.
Totally.
You was like, look, all right, cool. Like, say less. Like, this is what you want. Cool. Like, I'm about to go get my personnel together, and like,
and that's the thing that's interesting though. Like, just to give people context, KYP, know your personnel.
Know your personnel.
In sport, you know, we watched a lot of film, and we observed other teams. We watch ourselves. We figured out our tendencies, and it's like you try to understand yourself as a basketball player. So not only can you expand your horizons and
that's
your
KYG. KYG is know your game.
Yep.
KYP, know your personnel. Work hand in hand. Got to know what you do first and foremost, so that you are able to now, you know, put yourself in a position of strength, right? By playing to your strengths, mitigating your weaknesses. But if you can do that for yourself, you now then look to master that, and by saying, okay, I'm gonna go help others, right? And do that now for other people.
I love that you said it that way too, because at 14 years old, I mean, that's when we were really tight, 14 to 18.
Yep.
You know, there's hormonal changes. There's all kinds of life changes. You're trying to defy expectations. You're trying to get that scholarship. You're trying to get the thing. But it's also like being honest with yourself. When you look yourself in the mirror when you're brushing your teeth, it's like, here are the things I'm good at. Here are the things I'm not so good at. You got to own that. Let's really highlight our strengths, but let's also try to improve upon our weaknesses. And that's where I want to take our conversation next, Larry, is like we've talked about historical reference. We've talked about some really cool things within memory lane around, you know, the high school highlight reel, which anybody could type into YouTube, type in like Taft basketball 2007, 2008. You're going to see some pretty cool things.
Do you remember that Hollywood Hoops?
Yeah.
That's still up.
Oh, really?
Just type in Hollywood Hoops with a Z at the end of hoops.
HOOPZ.
Yeah, and it should still be up. You'll see.
That's
like
cool. Yeah, there was a company that followed us around for a little while.
They're gonna do a reality show.
Yeah,
they were like getting ready to pitch a reality show, and literally, I want to say maybe like a year or so later, that's when like reality TV kind of like started to like blow up. And
I remember that, man. They were there. Like I'd wake up at like 7 or 8 in the morning. They're like, oh,
they were doing all
cameras
kinds
were there.
Yep. We were look up Hollywood Hoops. You'll see.
That is cool. Check it out. What is something you did as a child that you no longer do as an adult? For many, that answer is play. RX Smart Gear allows for your daily workouts to turn into play and exploration. In my training, the Frevo rope gives me access to a versatile rope that I can take with me wherever I go. On the road, at the beach, to the park, or playing at home, RX Smart Gear jump ropes fit my needs. We at Allsmith trust RX Smart Gear. Their gear is always reliable and gives me peace of mind that I will have top-notch equipment to support my health and fitness journey. Hop on over to RX Smart Gear and use the discount code ALLSMITH to shop their latest cutting-edge gear. Have your gear work with you and not against you. But where I want to go is like, I want the world to know your story. Like, you were born in 1990. Your father had now played in the NBA for 10 years. What was that like? You're in a basketball family. Like, you're now navigating post-basketball career for your father. I'm sure he's going through things, but you probably didn't even know at the time. Versus like, hey, I'm an athlete. Now I'm a scout. Now I'm a coach.
Yeah. Well, my dad, he's somebody who's very, you know, you talk about KYG, know your game. He always knew his game in that he wanted to be a coach. So by the time he got into his post career as a coach, I think it was almost like second win for him. He was excited.
Came natural.
Yeah, it came natural to him. And he, you know, he's such a student of the game. He had already had such a long and successful career that it was very natural.
Did he back up Magic?
He played with Magic, 1 year. Backed him up. He has stories of and it's crazy because just recently I was hearing some stories that I had never heard before, like him telling about, I guess, like a training camp session. It was one day during training camp, and he was like, I was up on the phone. He was on the phone talking to his brother, kind of just like about how training camp had been up until that point, kind of just like even for him it was kind of surreal. You know, he had been in the league for like 8 or 9 years, I think, up until that point. But just the fact that he was with the Lakers and the whole culture of
Yep.
and he was literally in the conversation talking to his brother about this, and then like Magic busts in the room and he's like, "Hey, like we're all going out. Like put your stuff on." Like, and my dad, like he didn't go out. He didn't really do much of that stuff. So he was kind of like looking at Magic, and he was like, "Well." He must have said something to the effect of like, "Oh, well, it's not like on the schedule or something like that." And then Magic was like, "Well, you're a Laker, ain't you?" And then my dad goes, "Yeah," and he's like, put his stuff on real quick and like ran outside. So I'm like, that must have been cool, even for him. And the fact you go back to the competition, he'd been a competitor against this guy for so long, and now it's like in the play, having that level of respect, and now it's like forming this new brotherhood with this, with this new teammate, kind of a bond, but. I literally grew up like Laker Golden days. Like it is what it is. Like the Forum, Showtime, Laker girls, just getting to go into the locker rooms as a kid, going into like the Forum Lounge, Jim Carrey, freaking what's my guy's name? Jack Nicholson and every celebrity that you could. Yeah, I remember one time like my mom put me on the spot with Jim Carrey because I used to watch The Mask. It was like one of my favorite movies as a kid. And she was like,
"Somebody stop me!"
She's like, "Dude," and I was like, "I ain't gonna do it." And I see Jim kind of just like he's like standing there smiling. He's like, "Come on," like egging me on. And I just did it. I felt so stupid, but he like busting up laughing, and I'm just like, "Yeah, what is life?"
I've spoken to a few comedians, and something I really admire about Jim Carrey is he said something sometime in the last 5 or 6 years, which is depression is your avatar when you're trying to be something that you're not. And that really hit me. And that I felt like you and I could resonate on that, where it's like for 25 plus years, you're self-identified as this athlete. Like every holiday party, people are like, "Hey man, how's basketball going?" And you playing at the NBA level and then eventually overseas for a little while. And, me having a horrible college career and then playing overseas for a little while. And then like that just ending. All of a sudden, like your identity is like, whoa, who am I? How do I fit in this world? Like I was good at this thing. And like, now what am I good at? And I remember him saying that. And I remember like there was a pivotal moment sometime in the last decade where it was like, whoa. There's so many transferable skills from the life of a basketball player into this next arena of life and creating and being being more interested than interesting.
Well,
that I feel like you would really relate to.
The fact that I got to grow up watching and studying NBA players, and the Lakers just so happened to be the organization that my pops was with. Mm-hmm. And him just so happened to be, again, like teammates with somebody like Magic, and then me being this baby and getting a chance to so Magic is like my godfather. I grew up going to his house and playing with his kids, and like, mm-hmm. These are like my brothers and sisters, like my extended family. And so it's like having this individual kind of be like this teaching kind of guiding figure, like it not so much like in a direct manner, but like see, like even like my mom would speak to me about entrepreneurship and like ownership, right? The fact that I would go to the games and I would see the players and be out on the court and kind of doing my thing, but then she would always make it a point to show me who the owners were, who the GMs were, people behind the scenes, right? Like, and then also highlight, oh, well, your Uncle Buck, he owns the TGI Fridays, or he's opening a new movie theater, on Crenshaw, or how he's like investing and taking the time to like become more of a business forward, like an investor, right? Like, that was something for me that I think I didn't really understand it at the time, but thinking again, like, wow, as an athlete and somebody with a platform, you're going to demand a level of interest. But if you have you know, if you have the forward thinking enough to say like, yeah, I'm not always gonna be playing this game. I'm not always gonna be in this position demanding this kind of awareness or attention. You know, let me start doing things that can help seed for later on in my life. And Magic, again, was just somebody who I got to watch, again, almost like through the lens of an entrepreneur. And he you know, he would say it, you know, and I remember him having conversations with my mom, and my mom like picking his brain, his mind, you know, kind of just because my parents both were with the worked this foundation like in the early 90s. We're just very hands-on with, you know, some of his entities, but either way, it's just like them being able to relate to me. You know, your Uncle Buck is somebody who, again, he's an entrepreneur. What does that look like? What does that mean? You know, he's not just an athlete. He's not just a basketball player. He's a businessman. But his business is in that he's looking to create and link and connect, more so than say like, yeah, I'm gonna wear a suit and a tie right now, right? Like,
I love the way you say that. The phrasing that comes to mind is thinking bigger.
Yeah.
And I love that you said link and connect, because it doesn't mean that you always have to do. And you know that as a point guard, that like you don't always have to be the guy that scores the points. You can be the guy that like shares the energy, that like might say the right thing, that might get into the gap and pull that defender in as a distraction to create space and time and energy.
Yep.
And that's what I mean when I say transferable skills, like your ability to do awesome shit on the basketball
wanted to tie
court.
it all back, but that's it. It's the transferable skills, watching somebody like him learn, again, because I'm such a magnificent facilitator, you know, connecting. This is what I do. So KYG. And that was very transferable for somebody like him. He's having, you know, as much success as anybody.
The Dodgers.
Yeah, postseason of any athlete, right? Like,
totally.
You know, you can argue, but definitely transferable skills. The game of basketball, you know, has been able to teach me and show me.
I love that. Going back to your story a little bit, it's like, how did that impact your development as a child, right? Like, you're born into a basketball family. Your father's now traveling a ton. Your mom is teaching you great skills. She's being an awesome, like, cohort to understanding love and energy in the house and discipline and organization, taking you to and from all the different basketball things, first with you and later with your brothers, Lindsay and Landon.
Yeah.
How was that early on, like knowing that you were really good early? Like, I remember early on in the AAU scene, Basketball Avenue, and even before that, it's like you had a uniqueness about your game that like perked people's eyebrows and grabbed attention. But how did you personally, as a man and as a child at that time, manage the expectations and think of it as like unapologetic play versus like, oh my gosh, like my dad's an NBA player, how do I go do the thing? Did that even land on your radar?
No, because so much time was being spent in my front yard, on various park grounds and in various gymnasiums around the city of Los Angeles with my father, in cones and heavy balls and heavy ropes and weight vests and all kinds of things, that I didn't realize what I was doing was I was legit taking time that kids were not taking at this moment, right, in life, owning my skills for this very particular game, for this sport, right? Like, I spent so much time as a kid practicing, like, to the point where it like, again, like, working out was just part of my life. Like, it was just part of it was a discipline thing. You know what I mean? It was like, this is you getting your daily dose of discipline. And discipline was something that my parents preached. They
were awesome at it. I want to try to paint a picture for people. I got to be a part of it with you quite a bit in high school. I wish it was earlier. But I can't help but think about the 4 stages of learning. In the beginning, it's like what I would categorize like conscious competence. You're consciously like, fuck, I got to wake up in the morning. Let's have breakfast. Okay, well, now we're going to do this conditioning piece.
Yeah.
Now we're going to the gym to do the thing. Now we're eating again. Now we're going to do another conditioning piece. Now it's skill development plus, you know, a weight vest or weights, or we're trying to go to, different gyms within the area. Was it called 360 Gym?
Mm-hmm. Mid Valley, Mid Valley 360.
We got after it over there a few times, but like in the beginning, it's conscious, and then over the course of time, it's like, no, this is just me living my life. Well, this is like brushing my teeth.
Well, you said it. It's time, and time is like the human perspective, right? From the human perspective, like we perceive it as always moving forward and from this moment. So to tell somebody like, yeah, your future self is already looking back at this moment as a memory, you know what I mean? It's like you have to have some sense of what your future self is even going to be doing or thinking,
very well said.
But you gotta have a KYG. You gotta know yourself in this moment to have an idea of what your trajectory is gonna look like, to make that kind of a distinguishment. But like I always played pretty much knowing that this is like, again, my dad, this is what he does. He's a professional at what he does. He's already played. He's a professional. He's only going to surround me with other professionals, right? Now, with this time that I'm taking, again, at that time, I didn't see it this way, but I guess like I was getting hints of it because I saw the results. Like, though I was taking all this time working on everything, right? Like, and don't get me wrong, like some of it was like, like I didn't always feel like working out necessarily. I didn't always feel like, maybe going in conditioning, but I always felt a sense of reward once I was done doing it, because even though I didn't want to do it at that time, like completing it and having that, I mean, again, like, you work out, you feel better.
There's a couple of things to unpack right there. Like, I truly believe confidence is not just something you have. It's looking back, honestly, at a track record.
Yeah.
Like, when I've done the thing, this is how I felt. This is the rewards that I got. This is how I performed. So I know that works.
I know it works already. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then the results I was seeing on the court, I was so much better than everybody early that I'm like, I guess it equates. Okay, yeah, I see how me working, because as you get older, intangibles, right? Like, growth spurt might happen, injuries. Like, there's certain things that kind of like are outside of your control.
There's also just the distractions of life.
The distractions of life. Like, who knows?
Right? You're chasing girls. Yeah. You got school. You got all kinds of
these are all things that my dad made a point to teach me early. He's like, you're going to be a kid. I want you to be a kid. I want you to make your own decisions. But just know, if you actually do want to play professional basketball in the NBA, the 450 club, there's only 450 people.
I say that often. I'm so pumped that you said that.
Then he would, and then his face would kind of like, he would like, he kind of like have like, you see a little bit more emotion, right? Like, now he's kind of talking about like what it takes to make the NBA, and you can tell, like, because this is what he does and I'm his son, it excites him. And now he's just like, really, and he was very black and white. He's just like, either you're going to put the work in or you're not. Like, and then when you're not putting the work in, understand that somebody else is, and you might be better than somebody right now, but over time you're going to see people pass you by because you're not putting the same amount of work in. You're not taking the, and he would use that, on days where I just was like, now I'm in middle school, now I'm in high school, and it's like, I'm kind of aware of my value a little bit as it pertains to like college and like my ranking, like nationally, and I'm just like, I think and this is the truth. Like, I think I'll take a day off. Right. And then that's when my dad started really kind of, he's like, oh, okay, I see what's about to happen. He's like, I see what's about to happen here. Like, you're going to get passed up, like, but it's going to be good for you, kind of a thing. Right.
I feel like that's the most painful thing as a parent.
He knew it.
Is like, you can observe and be like, hey, I'm seeing this, but he's not going to listen to me. He needs to learn this on his own.
That's pretty much what happened. Like, freshman year, I was probably top 10 in the nation. Sophomore year, top 25. Junior year, top 50. Senior year, depending on where you look, I was anywhere top 50, top 100. But literally I had been killing for so long. I'd done every camp. I'd been, just on every AAU circuit. Like, it made sense, I think, too. Even, like, don't get me wrong, like, when the McDonald's All-American,
like, 2008 McDonald's All-American, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. But, like, even me, I'm like, there were guys. Jeremy Anderson, for example. Like, Jeremy was somebody who I knew nothing about until junior year of high school, and I wasn't until I started feeling like I was, or sophomore year, in Coach Holland at UCLA basically puts him on my radar, and I'm like, who's this guy? And because I wouldn't commit right away to UCLA, or at least at that point when UCLA wanted me to commit, that was the reason why I didn't go to UCLA out of high schools, because I wanted to take my official visit to North Carolina, do my due diligence, go through the process, but
they wanted it in that moment.
UCLA was like, all right, well, if you don't commit, we're going to give your scholarship to somebody who actually really wants to come here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Jeremy Anderson. And I remember thinking, like, who's that? Like, I don't know. I was almost like, give it to him. Like, you guys are going to regret it at the end of the day. That was my attitude, my mentality, because, and then I'm thinking back about what my dad was saying, like, there's going to be guys that pass you by. Like, if you're not taking every moment or respecting these opportunities as they come to you and doing your due diligence and putting more into the game, because as you get closer to where you're trying to get to, it's going to get harder. It's not going to get easier.
Wow.
It's going to continue like shaving off. So
I love that these names live with us for a little while. I actually have a funny story about Jeremy Anderson. And
that's my boy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
he's
again,
a stud.
And he's still playing. He's still cooking. Like, he's having a extremely prosperous career. You know what I mean? Like, over in Mexico, and good friends. And we talk about it too. Like,
you can be good friends and competitors at the same time.
Yeah, we ended up playing for Pump and Run. For a summer, spring and summer. But again, it's just like me. My journey with basketball is so like so many highs and so many lows. But that's why, like, I'm able to stay in the middle now, and like, I've developed my sense of balance.
You seem at peace.
I am. I'm not going to say I'm not, right? Like, that side wasn't that I'm not at peace. It's more so that, like, I just know. Like, I have a knowledge of who I am, where I am at this point in my life, and kind of like what's to come. So totally. I'm excited.
Totally. I remember Jeremy Anderson, dude. It was in 8th grade, and I played on a team where, dude, I'd get 30, and I got a lot of shots and could do a lot of different things. And we played against his team in the Inland Empire, and that dude got into my body. And before Kawhi and playing more inner city basketball, like, I think I had like 16 points, probably like 25 turnovers. Like, looking back on it, I just remember leaving that game like, whoa, Jeremy played not only at a different level, but I need to enhance my conditioning. And I just remember, like, my brother was a track athlete in high school at that time, and I was like, can I come to track practice with you? And, like, that's when I started the Santa Monica stairs.
The stairs, the dunes.
And it was just like, whoa, like, I'm going to figure out how to become more conditioned, more athletic. And I don't care if I fail. It's just going to be the pursuit of trying to maximize and squeeze all the juice out of this Bryce Smith orange, whatever that is.
Or if you don't, you're going to go out there, you're going to get embarrassed.
Totally.
The
totally.
competition was
They're so good, man.
A1.
And, yeah, it's so interesting that you say that. So, you developed over the course of time. Your dad gave you awesome lessons. You're training at that point. What started to happen as, like, Landon started getting older and he started kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit? I mean, he was a stud as he started to go through maturity.
Landon honestly was more skilled than I was growing up. I think he was kind of watching me, learning from my mistakes, but then he also just had a natural ability. You know what I mean?
He reminds me the most of your dad out of any of your brothers. Like, he's just so calm.
Yeah.
And just a watcher and observer.
Definitely the most like my dad. Lindsay's probably the perfect mix between my mom and my
only
dad.
Difference, isn't he like 6'6"?
Lindsay, I wouldn't give him 6'6". He's like 6'5" on a good day. He's definitely the tallest out of all of us.
Spoken like a true older brother. Got to pull him down just a little bit.
Just a little bit. He acts like he's 6'8". He thinks he's like a footer. But it was my brothers. I always knew, as far as competition was concerned, I wasn't going to take it easy on him. So I was, I'm a big brother. And,
I remember we had this like little trampoline in front of your house, and me, you, and Sean Madrigal would hang out on the weekends. And like this was before Lindsay went through puberty, and like we would jump off that trampoline and just fucking dunk on him to the point where he would like fall down and cry and go inside.
And then it would be all our fault. And then I get yelled at, and it was just that whole thing.
And I think that's part of the reason though why he developed to be bigger and tougher than all of us.
Lindsay definitely has a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
You can tell.
Where was he at? The University of Nevada for a little while?
Yeah, he was in Nevada. If it weren't for injuries, man, he think he'd definitely still be playing, having a good career. But it just, again, you never know. You gotta take everything as it comes. Injuries kind of it took me out of the game too. I had a herniated disc in my L4 L5.
How is that now?
Still gives me problems, to be honest. I didn't get surgery or anything. But I do yoga. I try to. It's forced me to be more mindful of the way that I move. You know what I mean? But it's part of life. It's part of the game. You gotta learn how to adapt. But again, at this point in my life, it's just a constant. What don't I know? The things I think I know that have gotten me this far. I have an awareness that, again, this is perspective based. My perspective on life and my experience, my reality, right, is just, it's mine, but totally. I can't take this and put it on everybody because you have a very unique story.
I can feel it though. Like you and I can see your story. I can absorb it. I can see it from the outside. I can feel a part of it, but it's like, for people that don't know, Jordan Farmar was an All-American in high school, ends up getting a full scholarship to UCLA, was an incredible, player in the Pac-12, then ends up playing for the Lakers. We're all observing this. You and I arrive at Taft. It was you and Oscar Belfield at that time. Yep. And then you had kind of like Eugene wasn't really anybody yet. I wasn't really anybody yet. Justin hadn't arrived yet. He was a little younger than us.
Justin and Turan came in a year later. It was just me and Oscar. I think at one point we were talking to, or there was
Pierce Brooks was in the conversation.
Pierce was before us. Yeah. He was a year before us. He was with
Jordan and them, his last year.
But just, bro, there was so much talent in SoCal at this time. Like, another name, he does podcasts now too, is Dallas.
Yeah, Dallas Rutherford. He and I have chatted a little bit. I was a few months ago, I was chatting with him. I'm like, dude, you look fat on the podcast with PG. It's like, we got to get you in shape. And now he's like crushing. He's back on his little fitness journey.
You're gonna get him in the gym, man.
He got in the gym. He's looking good again. He's been playing hard. He looks good.
Shout out Dallas. Dallas was a dog too.
He was a stud at that time. He actually played on my AU team in like 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah.
I became good friends with him, and he's a stud, and I'm a big fan of his. That dude still balls.
No, Dallas. I got so much respect for Dallas, and just I remember we did like this showcase. Mm-hmm. You remember doing like that? Like it was like
a freshman showcase.
Like a freshman showcase at Taft.
Yep, I remember that.
And I remember like going up against Dallas in that first half and thinking like, who is this? Like, who's this kid? Like, he's trying to go at me like he's white. Well, I'm about to give him some work. And then second half, I think Drew caught a tip dunk second half, and then it just became like the Drew Holiday show. And I just remember thinking like, yo, who is this kid dunking? Like, he's like my height at the time. And then from that point, it was just like, man.
Something I also remember about Drew is like in 8th grade, dude, he like was big and strong.
He was big, strong. He had a left hand. He could he played
ambidextrous.
Yeah, Drew was the best player I've seen. Like I've played against. Like
you and I have played against some of the best players ever, in my opinion, in LA City.
Yeah, like at this point, it's ever. Like,
you think Drew's number one? You know who I would say is number one?
The one that I have played. That I can't say Drew's the best player ever to come out of SoCal.
But that you've ever played against.
That I've ever played against.
I have two different answers, but I think I'm going to go with Brandon Jennings.
Brandon is you got to respect him, man.
When he was at Compton Dominguez, dude, the way he did certain things, I was just like, how did he do that?
Brandon was very flashy.
Yeah,
Brandon played with a lot of flair and a lot of excitement. And it just was a street boy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was from the streets. Like, and Brandon and I had been literally like
back and forth.
rivals though, since like
Yeah.
like when I was at ARC and he was with SCA South. It wasn't even SCA yet. It was South Coast All Stars, and in going to like nationals and regionals and
Yep.
always being on the other side, right, of Brandon, thinking like fuck this guy's like good, bro. He's just like
so
fucking good. Like, you know what I'm saying?
And it didn't make sense. Like, he would
cocky,
shoot
like an
step backs and, like, with his eyes closed, was just, like, flashy. He was dunking on people. No look behind the head, behind the back. He was, like,
very flashy. Very
Jason
flashy guy.
Williams times Tim Hardaway at a time that, like, AI was kind of phasing out of the NBA. And it's like, is this guy going to be the next version of AI? What's going on right
No,
here?
he was. I mean, not in the league. But like,
He had a 50 ball
I was
with the
gonna say,
Bucks.
His 50, yeah. Like, if that didn't let everybody know that, yeah, he had the means, you know what I'm saying? And I think he had the will and the drive to be the next Allen Iverson for sure.
I want to say something, though, that's really important. And, like, you can very much relate to this. There's something that happens. Like, you mentioned me get into the depth of my father, but the big word there was belief. He believed in me. You had belief from your mom, from your family, from our high school. He had belief in him from so many people. And then, you know, the recruiting process was weird for him. He couldn't really get the SAT score to get in at Arizona.
We still talking about BJ?
Brandon Jennings.
Yeah.
And so it's like, then it was like, oh, I'm going to SC. And then it was like, that didn't really work out. And then it was like, all right, I'm going overseas.
Well, Arizona. He said he was going to Arizona.
Yeah, exactly.
We took our visits on the same day, and Coach Olsen was like, I got 2 scholarships, but I'm pretty sure neither one of y'all want to play together.
Yep.
Because you guys, again, so whoever commits first.
And
then
so
he
it's
committed
like,
to Arizona.
He committed, but then
and it didn't go.
It didn't go. And, like, was it because the SAT scored, he didn't want to? There was a lot of nuance there. And then you started to think a little bit around, like, the ideology of, like, Brandon Jennings. You and I remember Renardo Sidney. He was the #1 player in the 2008 class. Him, Tyreek Evans, and Drew kind of battled out for that. And then you look at Taylor King. And, like, something that I wanted to throw out that I'm curious your opinion. It's like, I think about this often. It's like, I got to Taft High School. We were a Nike school. Up until that point, it was like, I was doing car washes. Like, I was working little, like, side jobs to be able to pay for AAU basketball. And then there was, like, the really good players that, like, had some sort of sponsor going on. And then shoe companies got involved. We got to Taft, and we were a Nike school freshman year. And then sophomore year through the end, we were an Adidas school. The Pump Brothers were kind of around. We've now seen the movie Air. We've seen Sonny Vaccaro. I'm sure you've crossed paths with so many different people. At that time, it was like money laundering. I later went on to San Diego State, where I learned a little bit more about this because my head coach, Steve Fisher, had that challenge at the University of Michigan with the Fab Five. I'm not an idiot, so I can put things into the Google machine and look up some history. But my question for you, Larry, is like, it's awesome when you're living it. Looking back, it's like, dude, these companies are throwing us this. We're flying around the country. We're high school kids. We're playing against all the amazing talent in the world. I mean, you and I got to play against John Wall in North Carolina. Like, we got to do some really cool things around the world. And then it's like, whoa, who was paying for that? What was going on? I don't really know. Like, I was just a kid.
The powers that be.
Totally. Tried to put a ball in a hoop. But my question, just kind of bringing it all full circle, is like, Brandon had everybody in his back pocket. I mean, he was the Reggie Bush of basketball. And it's like, then going overseas where it was like, didn't speak the language, the culture was different. Everybody wasn't giving him a pat on the back, and he had to go perform with adults where, like, the rules were different. The style of basketball was different. He didn't have the green light or the intrinsic belief. He later kind of figured out in the NBA, but, like, his demeanor was different. Whereas, like, that same swagger that you had in high school, like, life changes you a little bit. And it's like when you went to North Carolina, you had this thing, and then at least from my lenses, I felt like Roy Williams was trying to make you into Ty Lawson. And in my brain, I was like, dude, you have the best point guard in the country. Just let him be him. And, like, that's what I try to do on this podcast, is, like, give people the permission to be unapologetically themselves.
Yeah, I mean, from a, like, you know, athletes are brands, you know, and if you can brand your own style of play, right? Like, I think that would be what any athlete, you know, would be looking for in terms of a situation, right? So, I mean, yeah, like if you're if you're a player and you know it's all about or you know what's the analogy now, like 50 piece, like a 50 piece chicken nugget, right? So I'm saying you score points now, it equates to eating, you know, food. Like you get food endorsements, you go work out a deal with, you know, again, it's contingent to like who you are as an athlete and how, you know, your personality, right? And for so long, all that was dictated by coaches or teams or universities or, you know, agencies, right? Like we're looking for a certain kind of a, you know, to be able to integrate within our network, or this brand is looking to work with this kind of a player. Now guys are just like, no matter where I go, no matter what's going on around me, I am now the commodity. I know what I bring to the table. So now things need to kind of,
the players have a lot more power.
they have a lot more power. Well, they've always had the power. Now they're just having more conversation about that power, you know, said power. Or again, it's the proof is in trying to, or the work is in trying to prove that model now. If you're a player, right? Like, there's been so many cases, so many, you know, people who have put the NCAA, I think, like on blast and you know, really continue to fight for a seat at the table when it comes to ownership and equity that players provide. Again, organizations, teams, universities, what have you. So, you know, like in any player's case, you know, or like my agent, he said, like, even like, okay, if you're an American player and you're going overseas, and I think, well, I'm not going to say it's true out here because the it's a little different than the NBA is a little different than FIBA, but he's like, if you're an American player and you go overseas, you would be lucky to get 2 out of these 3 things, right? When looking for a team, between a coach that you want to play for, being in a city that you want to be in, and making the money that you want to make. Like out of those 3 things, like if you get 2 out of those 3 things, then you're lucky.
I'd take the coach and the money.
Right.
I don't care about the city. I'll figure it out.
But again, it's like, who are you as a player, as a person? Like, what do you need to, you know, to bring results to the table, right? So, the nature of basketball, sporting now, marketing, like it's so much. It's about the players are having conversations. They're demanding more. I think, from an equitable standpoint, in that, again, like if you look at LeBron, like I bring up LeBron, like knowing that, you know, you got to say the right things, right? Because he's a powerful individual. But even still, it's like you look at the fact that he makes his best friend his agent. Okay,
Rich Paul.
And then now what does that do? Right? It's like he took a leap of faith. He said that, I know my value, and because I'm going to be the most valued player within this organization, I don't want anybody else to have any of that value. I want to only give that value to somebody I trust and I want to build up. And that was his best friend. And then now so he takes that gamble, right? He wins big on the fact that he's the most valued player in the NBA. So now you've got yourself as the highest valued player and your friend who you trust as your agent. Now, we all know agents get a cut of deals that they bring in. And now what happens when said agent is now signing players to this agency that you as LeBron James basically facilitated and created? You founded this agency. And now it's like you're playing against competition who are signed to your agency. So you're a player agent in a sense, right? Or more so like your best friend, you know, like I don't know the inner workings of Clutch in relation to like the NBA or like compliant or like what's what, but again, leverage, that's powerful. That's equity. That's somebody knowing like, okay, if it were to work out this way, then I can put my stamp on knowing that this is what I'm going to be owed, contingent to what I'm going to bring to the table as far as results are. So you got to be able to play all this out.
It's a really
good
point that you bring up. And I also think I talk about this often. And it's like, I think for 25 plus years, I was very married to the concept of like education, trying to go get more school, get a college degree, all these things. And now having done those things, I say this often, it's like, it's a mystery looking forward and it's science looking back. Now I'm like, I trust you more than these other people because we've gone to battle before. I know I got your back. I know you got my back. And it's like, it's proven.
Yep.
And there's something to be said about the relationship between LeBron and Rich Paul where it's like, there could be all these other guys that like have all this business knowledge, financial knowledge, all these things, but it's like, man, they've crossed paths in the midst of trying to become men together, trying to navigate the world together. What does this mean? What does that mean?
They've been in the trenches, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you got LeBron, he would know better than anybody, right? What LeBron's about to do.
There's a gut instinct. And I talk about this, and
then
I
you
think
put
about
your best friend in that position and say, like, bro, like, let's go do this. Like, I'm going to, all this business, all this energy, everything that gets thrown my way, I'm going to funnel directly into you and make you my point of contact.
Yeah. That's insane. But it's also fantastic at the same time because there is something to the human experience that can't quite meet the eye but must be felt.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I trust this, and there's something to this that I'm going to lean into a little bit heavier because the dosage of volume and trust that I feel here feels right. And whatever you can't figure out, we'll either figure it out together or we'll outsource it to people. And that's what you talk about often, KYG, know your game.
And that's the green light. If you got, you gotta be in a situation where you feel free to make a mistake, right? And it's not just going to be a situation where you're being micromanaged or you feel like you're going to be punished right away. Like, it's a fantasy, right? Like, it's something that we all dream of is being like in the best case scenario, right? But you can build those, you know what I mean? Like, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes a level of sacrifice.
It's belief.
Yeah, but you have the belief in yourself that, it's almost like if you build it, they will come. Like, people don't, going back to social media, going back to like the quick access or access to all these different things, right? If I don't get it right away, on to the next idea, on to the next option, or instead of like building it.
Totally.
you build it, you put the right intent into something, you get your messaging together. You got to know how to inspire people, right? Like, it's all about, again, like, if I can't do something, then somebody else that I know can. So let me put this person in position to get this done.
Totally.
And people
empower people. And you were a great job of, you did a great job of that as a point guard. Peptides. There's been a lot of buzz about peptides and what they can do for the body, skin, muscles, and health. What exactly are they? And do they live up to the hype? Your body makes peptides. They are strings of amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. Peptide therapy involves using prescription-based peptides to help treat and manage a variety of health conditions to maximize performance. Peptides consist of 2 to 50 amino acids and are made naturally in the body to act as important signaling molecules for many physiological and cellular functions. There are over 7,000 known functions of peptides in the body, and adequate levels in the body are imperative for performing at optimal levels. Discover a transformative journey to optimal well-being with Live Peptides. Live Peptides offer a natural and effective approach to health support. Embrace the difference. Choose Live for a path to vitality that prioritizes quality, innovation, and your unique wellness goals. My personal favorite is BPC 157 with thymosin beta for optimizing gut health, tissue regeneration, and healing. Head over to livenatural.com and use code ALLSMITH for 20% off peptides. That's LIVVNATURAL.com with discount code ALLSMITH for 20% off peptides. Let's go backwards a little bit. North Carolina, man. You take that full ride scholarship. You're one of the best players in the country. You're coming off having the green light in high school, McDonald's All-American, in front of the camera nonstop. Clearly, you're not afraid of public speaking, which I'm very thankful of for our high school career, because like me going into this space and different things that I've done since, I love the camera, man. Give me the camera. I'll talk all the time. I don't always say the right thing, but it feels right to be in front of the camera. And we got to learn that at a young age.
Yeah. It's part of the job description.
Totally. But like you get to North Carolina. It's cold. It's on the opposite coast from your family.
Yeah.
It's foreign. You're following in the footsteps of Ty Lawson and Tyler Hansbrough. You're playing for Roy Williams, which also, to give people context, this man used to fly on a private helicopter, land on the top of gymnasiums, and then walk down to watch Larry play. It was unbelievable. And what was it like, man? What was that experience like?
It was
the best and worst thing.
It was. I'm just gonna say. I guess it was needed. It was definitely needed for me, because I thought things that just weren't true at that time. And most of it had to do with like my perception of, again, kind of like, because I came from a basketball family, because I'd been around the game for as long as I've been around, professionals and playing, and, obviously like working my way up to get to college, right? But again, I think at that point, my brand was, or what I thought my brand was facilitating, dictating the pace, being a playmaker, being able to change speed, change direction, kind of play my game. And so, like I said, this is what I thought like it was going to be. Going to North Carolina was, I'm gonna just be able to do whatever I want. But I was, I quickly learned that, yes, just, or no, more so, just because you grow up and you think one thing, you think things don't necessarily make it true in other places, right? Like culture-wise, like the South is much different than the West Coast. And there is a history to the South, to the ACC, to UNC that I didn't have a respect for going into it. And so, again, appropriate fear. I didn't have the right appropriate fear going into that situation. I kind of went into it like, I'm me. People will kind of adapt to me, and I will figure it out accordingly, right? But
let me jump in real quick right there. Like, what I'm hearing is you're bringing hip-hop culture to the South, which maybe it's a little bit like north-south.
It's more so the Valley. Like, I'm laid back, I'm not very I mean, because we play. It's not like I'm not talking shit. I'm not jumping in your face and clapping, jumping up and down. I'm pretty like even keel, until somebody riles me up. Now it's like, all right, well, I can match your energy. Yeah. But for the most part, was even like coaching, right? Like my dad taught me how to be coachable. So how to take corrective criticism, being accountable, understanding, like, again, how they say something to you might not necessarily, like, don't listen to how something might be said to you. Like, try to take the message, especially
take the message
from
rather
a coach.
Than the tone.
Yeah, from a coach, right? Like in these kinds of situations and relationships, but I feel like, again, like up until that point, I had been with teams, been with coaches, that are stern, that raise their voice, obviously, and they're not there to be your friend by any means. That you're a kid, you're a player, and this is your coach. So there needs to be a respect, that dynamic. But I think, at least from my experience, it wasn't as much of a respect thing. I think the two-way respect thing that I was looking for wasn't prevalent. It was more so of a one-way respect, that this is what it is, and this is our system, and this is our university, and this is our program, this is our culture, and you have to buy into everything that we are doing. We're not necessarily interested in doing what's best for you in your case. We want you to do what's best for us in our case.
Because I have no affiliation with this, I'm just going to tell you my thoughts. It's fucking bullshit. I think true leadership is collaboration. And it's in meeting your people or your players or your team where they're at, listening, seeking to understand. And then even if you have dictatorship style, leadership style, that's fine. Find some sort of way to create buy-in. I don't really like this. I mean, if that was the case, it's like, fuck, let's make this place communism. I'm not really interested in that. I'm more interested in like collaboration, because I'm one man. I have certain lenses on the world, but there's a lot of people out there way smarter than me. Let's seek to understand different lenses on the world, different lenses on the game, and let's bring our flavors together. Man. And look at the unique innovation with just like food. If it was just like one size fits all, you wouldn't see evolution. Look at art. You see all these collaboration and things coming together. I mean, Taft was a melting pot for that. Like, there was not one generation or one demographic
or
of
culture.
people.
In like us growing up in LA, there is that, right?
The diversity is huge.
But in the South, it's not as diverse.
Interesting.
And so it's like, unless you go to the South and you live in the South and you spend ample time in the South versus spending and living in, being in Los Angeles, you wouldn't understand the diversity, right? Or the difference in diversity. So, and again, it's like, I was introduced to politics into a level of like politics from the game and kind of, you know what I mean? I was so just naive to, like, I didn't put any thought into, I didn't really, like, I heard stories, you know what I'm saying? People talk about politics and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, okay, well, that has nothing to do with me, because
how did that affect you as a man? Because like knowing you, like seeing how you are now, like you got that pep in your step again, like.
But see, this is it. This is what I think. What didn't mix is that I'm not just like the blind obedience kind of a guy, right? I'm more so like, I'm gonna fill it out and then I'm gonna give you my opinion and then we can talk about it, and we'll go from there, type of a thing, right? Either my style, the way I play is something that it works for people, or it doesn't, But at the same time, I'm a human. It's nothing that we can't have a conversation about. You can't, there's a level of respect, level of integrity that I do expect, right? When I talk to people and I engage with people. So, regardless if you're older than me or not, right? Like, I still feel like on a human level, there should be commonality and understanding, right? So,
and that's how you create a roadmap for in success in the future. I heard something really cool from a friend of mine. He played baseball at the University of San Diego and then played for the Padres for a while. And he talked about like his very first meeting at the University of San Diego. He sat there and he actually didn't look at his coach really as his coach or somebody that was trying to develop him. He said he sat there and he thought, wow, this man's job and the livelihood of his family is actually indicative on my performance and everybody's performance in this room. And yeah, that is true. But you know how you maximize performance is making people feel comfortable, making sure they feel believed in, making sure you create a set of circumstances to help them maximize their potential, especially a point guard at that time. At least the lenses that I had, like Ty Lawson was the straw that stirred the drink the year before. So it's like if you're trying to bring in that same thing, then it's like the point guard position is really important on that team. Let's figure this out.
Well, it was like a gift and a curse because of my dad, because he was who he was and such a basketball mind. He really taught me, like, IQ wise, what to look for, like how to think the game, how to talk the game, how to communicate to others, and so I think because I knew so much of what people don't learn until very later on in their careers, but through experience and playing I had somewhat of a knowledge of, and
you were an old soul.
Yeah, I was an old soul. And so it's like that, like, I see it almost as like I was like the last of like a dying breed. You know, like there's not many other point guards like me left.
Yeah.
Like guys are just buckets now. You just, but the game is different, right? Like it's so many more possessions per game. There's an emphasis on it. Could you imagine what it would be like if we were playing with with today's mindset, right?
Way
like
different.
I mean, to an extent, though we were fast paced, though we played a fast paced style of game. I'm still saying it's like like I would be shooting way more threes.
Oh yeah,
I would be shooting way more threes. I would be, you know,
my style of game would fit better now.
That's what I'm saying. Like you already had, like it was perfect, like for you and people in players like you. But what I'm saying too is just like my dad, literally. Decade to decade, from 80 to 90, 2000, 2010, like he's watching the game evolve. He's Larry Drew. I'm Larry Drew, you know, second. Like he's telling me and teaching me everything he knows, you know, about this game that he loves so much, so been able to provide for his fans. So I'm learning all of this, you know, and that again made my head like big. Like I thought
it formulated your belief system into what it meant to be a facilitator and a point guard
early. And it was like, again, my dad, if you're not Pops, right? Or if you're not having a conversation with Pops, you can't, you know, you don't have the same wisdom as my dad. You don't have the same experience as my dad. It's not that I didn't respect you. It's just that I expected respect. Does that make sense? Like I respect everybody,
well,
but
here's the
I
other thing about
respect,
though. Like it unfortunately, from an old school thought ideation, comes from age.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, you're Larry Drew. You're 18 years old. You actually don't know anything about anything,
right?
And at least from what I'm seeing from your lenses, you're like, you don't understand. I'm 18 years old, but I've spent 18 years in an NBA locker room.
Right.
Not to mention, like, going back to when we talked about your training, like you woke up in the morning and your entire day was crafted as to how can I become the best point guard in the world.
It's age and it's money. Like either you're old enough so people respect you or you're being paid enough so people respect you. And because I was young and I wasn't a professional yet, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, and you know, you still see it to like, again, like to this day, like, you know, we were talking about it in the lobby, like me thinking like, okay, am I going to now create a lane for myself as a personal skills trainer at this point in my life, knowing that guys have been in this lane for 5, 6, 7 years now. They've got their social resumes and all this, that, everything looks great, right? But then how do you tell a kid who's 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, or his family who know nothing about basketball, why you're the better choice than, say, the trainer who hasn't played D1 basketball but has a great social resume and it looks great, versus the guy who, like, again, myself, I don't have crazy YouTube highlights. I don't have, like, you know, my social media isn't just focused on, like, you know, me being a personal trainer, but you can Google me.
Yeah. I think that's so true. It's the variance of REAL versus REEL. But more importantly, man, I think it just shows the value of storytelling like this, right? Very like true. Connecting with people to authentically share your story, go back and forth with people that like, hey, man, you don't need to explain it to me. I played with you. I watched you.
Well, yeah, for you, I mean, again, this is for the audience and people who don't know me, right? Like, it's... We can talk all day.
Yet. The key word is yet, though. They don't know you yet.
They don't know me yet. They don't know me yet. You know me, though. That's why I'm saying,
Totally.
like, it's so different, me talking to you. And even, like, over the course of us being here, I'm having to remember that I'm not just talking to you. Like, people don't know me yet. And it's more so to give them a chance to learn me.
I think what people do know, you know, I've done 200+ episodes now. I've connected with some of the top performers in the world. I don't just have anybody on this podcast. Like, I chose specifically to have you. I waited till we were able to get, you know, our studio set up and our ducks in a row. And it was a big thing around, I want to authentically storytell, because when I self-reflect on inner city basketball in Los Angeles, all these guys that are making the NBA, awesome. That's great. I'm so proud of them. Like, it's fun watching all of them. Like,
Yeah.
I have so many stories with Paul George, man, at like Cal State Dominguez Hills and just like goofing off and having fun. But the big thing is like, you're the best to do it to me, man. I mean, I'm biased because I got to play with you, but it's like, there's a uniqueness that you possess that's bigger than basketball. That's a creativity, it's timing, it's on time, it's on target. And you mentioned it early on, and I wrote it down here a few times. The ball finds energy. Storytelling finds energy. The universe finds energy. It's so much more than that. You later went from North Carolina, you transferred to UCLA, you played for the legendary Bill Howland. I've got a bunch of friends that are Washington fans, so I, throughout the entirety of today, pulled up your game winner against Washington just to let them know, like, hey, this is my boy. I'm going to go see him in a little bit.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, getting to hit a game winner after Paulie had reopened that year after being renovated, and having my experience at Carolina. And, when I left, I didn't know where I was going to go. I left pretty much just, like, on a whim, like, just – let go and let God, and got a call from Coach Holland maybe 10 minutes after the story broke on ESPN that I was transferring, and he was like, wanted to apologize for pressuring me during, high school to, and trying to commit early, but it was like, yo, we got a scholarship for you, like, for you to consider coming back, and you'd be our only senior on the team, which I thought was cool. And then he also was like, because you're transferring between conferences, you'd have to redshirt a year. So I was like, oh, and I get some time to kind of just, kick back and refine my love for the game, because, like, it was mentally, spiritually taxing, but I think it was good for me, right? Like, getting a chance to reset. Like, I mean, again, going from McDonald's All-American, having the green light in high school to, we won it my freshman year, but I didn't play much. I played like 5 or 6 minutes a game,
NCAA champion has to feel good, but at the same time, when you're not a huge contributor, it doesn't have as much meaning.
Well, I mean, it was a learning thing. It was a new experience. I had never been in an experience in which I'm on a team, we're winning, and I have no contribution. I didn't know what that. I just didn't know. It was like, I'm obviously happy. I'm obviously like, I love this for my teammates, and I love this for the school, and this is an experience that is a once in a lifetime kind of an experience. But at the same time, it's like, I wish I could have contributed. I wish I could have added something to this, outside of me just being a good teammate or a good, somebody on the bench.
Elon Musk talks about it in being a purposeful human in the world. He says it with 2 words so eloquently. You want to be useful.
Yeah.
And like, you were, but it's like, you knew you were capable of more.
You want to be more. Yeah. You want to be more useful.
You felt like a Ferrari at the bottom of the ocean. You're like, I want to go like rev my engine a little bit. And like, it was cool also, though, just observing that, because it was a new role for you. Got to learn a lot. But also, it like made you so hungry for that next year.
What it did was it broke me all the way down. It broke me down completely to the point where I was kind of like questioning whether or not I was actually good.
Yeah,
and
it's
I had
reshaping the ego, which is painful, but so necessary as a man.
That's why I said necessary. It was. I needed all of it, because it completely reshaped my ego. And when I transferred, I had time to almost kind of like process this new reshaping of my ego. So by the time I got to play my senior year, I was a little bit more, what's the word? I knew I was going to be like kind of getting back into the swing of things. Like, I didn't play a lot my redshirt year. So after I took that year playing at UCLA, I wasn't shooting a lot. I wasn't scoring a lot. I was more so being a facilitator. The freshman class we had, Shabazz Muhammad, Kyle Anderson, Jordan Adams were great scorers, right? Like, very, very talented freshmen. So I'm like, let me play to my strengths. I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. I'm kind of trying to make a comeback here, right? So that kind of started my mindset as far as making a comeback is concerned.
Did it feel like a little bit more like Taft? Where you had scores around you and you could just be Larry?
It did. It felt more like Taft for sure. But it still wasn't Taft. It still was. It was more so like, it was UCLA. It was another like UNC. It was another like, you know, situation where there's history, there's culture. You gotta abide by like, you know. But me and Coach Howland got along so much better than me and Coach Williams did that it just made it so much more of a pleasant experience for me personally. But then, like I said, I was dealing with injuries. I was trying to keep it under wraps. So
was it the back at that time, or what was it?
Well, I actually herniated my back L4, L5 my freshman year at Carolina. I did it early in my career.
How'd you do it? Was it playing or was it in the weight room?
Bro, I gained like 20 pounds my freshman year. I went from like 155 to almost like 180 pounds. So I was pounding like protein shakes and freaking Olympic squat, Olympic weightlifting, you know, like hang cleans, the front squats, and supersetting with pull-ups in between. Like I didn't lift, Bryce. I went from not lifting to doing all of this.
Pause for a moment. Like you and I did some like poor man's like workouts at 360 when we were in high school.
Well, yeah, it's plyometrics. It's, you know what I mean? You got like,
but like I was in the same boat,
curls.
dude. I got to San Diego State and like I was like 6'3", $175, and all of a sudden they pull in this recruit, transfer from Louisville, Lorenzo Wade. He's 6'6", 230 pounds. I'm guarding this guy in practice every day, and the dude's just beating me up. And then I have, you know, in the back of my ear that they're pulling in Kawhi next year. They got another guy with us that was 6'5", 235 pounds, Kyle Spain. And so, like, same thing, dude. Every day I'm eating, like, 7 Chipotle burritos. I'm pounding all kinds of protein shakes. I'm in the weight room, and I'm just like, my body doesn't want to be 220 pounds. My body wants to be $185.
Not only did I gain that much weight, but I also was playing, like, the fastest I had ever played. You know, so my body just was like, yo,
he wanted you
what
to
are
push
you doing?
so hard.
Ty
I
Lawson.
remember watching that. Ty Lawson style. Get
was
the ball and go.
That was my opportunity to score was on a break. It was basically it. Anything in half court, I probably wasn't going to get a look. So he was just like, if you want to score, just run faster than everybody. People who are already closer to the basket. Like, how am I supposed to run past people who are already
I remember.
on defense? But all of this, right? And my back goes out, and now I'm thinking like, okay, well, this looks bad. Having a bad back at 19 when I have aspirations of going to the NBA, right? So compounding the fact that I wasn't playing well, I'm now injured. I go to, I didn't get drafted. So after my time at UCLA, but then I'm in the combine, and I'm doing the combine work after training for 3 months in Atlanta, you know, for the draft, doing all this stuff. But I'm doing the 3-quarter sprint in the combine, and then I tear my quad. And then I fly home. I have a talk with my agent, and I'm scheduled for like 6 or 7 NBA workouts that I didn't want to cancel. So I end up flying to Minnesota for a workout with the Timberwolves with my quad torn. And I remember by the end of that workout being in so much pain. They fly me home. They're like, all right, you now have like a grade 3 tear. It's like you tore it even more. It's getting worse. I had to like drain out my leg. And I just was like, well, this is great. I didn't know what was going to happen. And then almost like UCLA, or more so like when I transferred from Carolina, not knowing where I was going to go, UCLA gave me a call. You know, didn't get drafted. I'm getting hurt. Like, all this stuff's happening. I didn't know which way my career was going to go. And then I got a call from the Heat. And they're like, we want you to come to training camp. We've been watching you like a game, and, you know, want you to be in our system. So 2013, I go to training camp with Miami, LeBron, D-Wade, Chris Bosh, right? It's the third year of their three-peat. So they're the Heatles, right? So I'm in South Beach with the Heatles, right, after not being drafted. And by all means, or by all intents and purposes, like, I felt like I made it, right? Not like not like on a personal level, but there was so much going on within the organization in Miami at this time with LeBron, with all these high profile guys, that just being a part of this training camp was a win.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like chaos is where you and I thrive.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like at Taft, it was kind of boring when it was just like another day. But then when it was like showtime, you got like Magic there. You had Jamie Foxx. We had all the celebrities there. There was like chaos going on. That was when like the world kind of slowed down for me. And I almost feel like for you, like you're kind of used to Hollywood. You're used to the attention. You're like, let's go do the thing.
Well, from like a celeb, I guess, like, yeah, like lights, camera, action kind of a standpoint, just being around the NBA, seeing how athletes kind of, you know, they got to do interviews after games and before games. So it's like, you know, they're used to being on camera. They're used to public speaking. They're used to like engaging with fans. It was just always something that I felt like, again, just comes with the territory. What was the, I just forgot what
just how do you find the ability to find calm in the midst of chaos?
Okay,
right?
chaos. So what I was gonna say about chaos is, and it's funny because I tell Stephanie this all the time, as far as like, especially like after we might have disagreements or bump heads sometimes, but I'm like, at the end of the day, people should feel good getting into disagreements with me or any kind of like anything heated, because it's like, what I know to be true about people is they always play their best. They always look their best. You know,
they're genuinely trying to do their best.
No, when it's easy to, when it's easy to, like when you feel good, is obviously you're gonna look good if you feel good. You might play good if you look and feel good. You might play, you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, well, when everything is going well for you and you have everything, and all right, you go down the line, the checklist, and is everything right where I thought it was gonna be? And you prepared for it to be a certain way, but what happens when shit hits the fan? Like, and things don't go how you planned it to go, and you have to adapt. That's chaos. And that's, you're right. I do thrive there because I love watching people in situations that are chaotic for them because now I know how you act in the heat of the moment.
You get to information gather and get the real truth.
So I low key am like,
you're just waiting.
I'm waiting. I always wait for something to go wrong. Not to say that I'm a pessimist, because I'm very optimistic, and I see the good in people, before I see the bad in people. But the moment somebody shows me who they are the first time, I accept.
You believe them.
I believe it, because I'm like,
I saw you put up something on your social media. It was like the pessimist, optimist, realist, and all the things. And then our good friend Malcolm Smith commented, "You drive me nuts." And I was like, that's my boy Malcolm.
Yeah.
That's fantastic right there. You're so right, though. Like, and it's also the epitome of kind of how you played. Like, you weren't, like, super attacking in the first quarter. You kind of got your guys going a little bit. And then it was like, as people started to get tired and you were able to observe people's tendencies and habits, you're like, all right.
Because I knew, like, if I like, coming out the gate, I always knew, feed Bryce. Bryce is either going, if you knock down your first couple threes, I already knew what kind of game it was going to be. It was going to be a downhill game. If I get it to you early and you miss your first couple of shots, I already knew that, okay, well, Bryce, right, like, he didn't open it up like how he could have, but I knew that, again, even for you, it's something that you were going to have to reshape, right? Like, so you're now going through your process of how you deal with missing your first couple of shots. I'm not going to put too much added pressure on you by putting you in that same position to either have to now make or miss. It's like, deal with the fact that you've missed a couple of early shots, but now I'm going to go look for somebody else, knowing that you're, second quarter, right when you go to the bench, you get back in and you've refreshed. I'm going to hit you the same way. So now that you've got your refresh and, knock them down.
What's interesting about that, though, is like in a modern day world, so many people are just thinking about themselves.
Yeah.
And you have this unique ability to think outside of yourself. You're thinking about the perspective of all these other people, and that's such a great intangible for business. And you humbly talked about transitioning from UCLA, got an opportunity with the Heat.
Mm-hmm.
What came next? And how long did you play in the NBA?
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level.
Not long, to be honest with you. And
almost to like a few different organizations.
Yeah, well, I mean, to bring it like full circle, right? So my story again is as a kid growing up in the NBA household with a father and always believing like this was my calling. I was going to get there, and then just naive politics kind of come into play, like real life, right? Injuries, right? Things outside of my control. So, like I said, I had this chip on my shoulder where part of it was, again, like me having conversations with myself, like, are you, like, again, has it just been laid out for you? You know what I mean? Like, is it just because your father is this guy and you've got resources and you've had time to work on stuff and you've got, like, or are you, like, is all that true, too? But then you also have another element of, like, that special something that, only 450 people at a time have. Mm-hmm. So as I'm going through the rest of my career, not being drafted, going to Miami, being with them, again, I kind of was like, do I set myself up for failure thinking that, like, I'm going to make this team, right? Knowing that they only had 2 roster spots at the time, and I'm looking at who else is at the camp, and it's Michael Beasley and Roger Mason Jr. Was it Roger Mason? I forget who else, but I was like, I'm not going to make this roster. Pretty much just too many vets, too many, you know what I mean? So I go to the G League, Sioux Falls Skyforce. This was the closest to Taft, a team or an organization, like feeling-wise, that I had been. And it wasn't my first year. It was my second year. My first year, I probably averaged like 8 points, 6 assists, like 4 rebounds, something like humble. You know what I mean? I was trying to figure out the system of, right? At that time, it was the D League. It hadn't become the G League yet. It was still the developmental league. And the next year is when they bought it. Gatorade made it the G League. But it wasn't until me going into my second year, I was out here because I would come, back home in the off season to train and kind of just hang out before having to go back. And I got a call maybe a week before I was slated to go back to Sioux Falls because they own my rights. And this guy is on the line. He's like, hey, this is Larry Drew. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, hey, this is Coach Phil Weber, and I'm going to be coaching you in Sioux Falls. And I was like, oh, okay, what's going on, Coach? Like, get to hear from me. He's like, yeah, I'm watching your tapes right now. I'm watching some of your films. And he's like, I got to say, like, you remind me a lot of Steve Nash, like, just in your ability to, like, create and facilitate and just get around, you know what I'm saying, and handle the ball and, just do things. And he was like, I was with the Suns with D'Antoni, and he's like, I'm just gonna tell you straight up, like, we're just gonna let you just like I'm gonna let you play your game.
7 seconds or less, baby.
Yeah, he was like, I'm gonna just build the offense around what you're capable of and what you're able to do, and we're gonna create like everything is gonna be downhill. It's gonna be all pick and roll basketball. It's just gonna be all like you dictating everything. And so I remember being like, wow, that's really cool, having him kind of reach out and let me know he's scouting me right now, but he's also like, he recognizes what my strengths are, and the fact that he would be willing to have this conversation, let me know, like, going into it, like, all right, we're building this trust, right?
Success is in the agency of others and really empowering people in their strengths. And, like, you probably know this, but, like, Derek was a master of that in high school. Like, he would have those conversations with you, and then when you were gone, he'd have that conversation with me. And then when I was gone, he'd have the conversation with Turan and Justin and Eugene. And it was just like, when you can empower people to really take ownership of their role, Now there's a power behind it. I mean, think about like an apartment complex. Most people don't care that much about the common area because they don't take ownership over it.
Right.
But they care a lot about their apartment.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you really care about this team and you take ownership over your role, look at the Patriots. What was the shirt that they wore? Do your job. If you do your job and your coach believes in you to do your job and you have the agency to go be a creator and you're not walking on eggshells thinking you're going to get pulled or kicked off every time you make a mistake, you're going to be pretty damn good.
Look, I remember going into halftime one game
with Sioux Falls.
This is the year that I was playing for Phil Weber, who's now the front office with the Pelicans. So he's GM with the Pelicans now. But we go into halftime, and then one of the managers is like, "Hey, like, you have 16 assists at the half." I was like, "Oh, okay." I want to say, like, I remember being at Taft, us playing Chatsworth. I had 19 assists at the end of the third quarter, and Derek didn't play me the fourth quarter because I think Jordan's record was something like 22 assists, and I wanted to break it.
Yeah, let's smash that.
But he didn't even let me in the game. So then by the end of that game in Sioux Falls, I finished with 23 assists and breaking the single game G League assist record. And I had 16 points, 23 assists, 8 rebounds, and I just remember I remember not remembering anything about that game. In the sense,
just felt like flow.
Yeah, I was just out there just doing whatever, and then the next day I got called up.
That's cool. Where'd you get called?
On Christmas.
So
that game was on Christmas. I broke the G League record, so they were like, he's like Santa Claus. So we're going like Santa Claus of the G League, and then the next day, I got called up. So I attribute all that to, like, you know, Coach Weber, the fact that he called me early. You know, he was like really buying into what I was going to bring to the team as far as me being a creator and a playmaker.
Man, I think it's the greatest gift you can give another individual is truly believing in them.
He believed in me, and I made it. And so from that point, it was almost like, this is a 10-day contract. I'm not signed for the season. I'm not making big bucks.
Who'd you get pulled up by?
Philly,
cool.
76ers. Nice. So I did like 10 days with them.
How did it make you feel being a part of the Sixers organization, knowing how we looked up to AI at that time?
Bro, again, like at that point, with what I had just been through, like college and the whole thing, like me being there was like, oh, I'm not bad. You know, like I was good enough to always be here. Yeah. It basically just gave me that confirmation that I guess I was always looking for, even though, like I said, I didn't stick to a team or, you know, like me literally just like through the mud, you know what I'm saying? Like, again, wasn't drafted, all these injuries, went to the G League, like nobody gave me any handouts. Like my coach gave me an opportunity, right? It's not a handout, right? Like I went there and improved myself. So, you know, it was game in and game out. It was enough for me. Like that was enough for me, knowing that I had made
space, and you filled it. And something that I want to say is, like, I'll use Steph Curry as an example. Davidson graduate, didn't have a ton of D1 offers, makes it to the NBA. I actually trained with his father Dell quite a bit in the Santa Monica area towards the tail end of his career when he was with Charlotte. But what if Steve Kerr doesn't believe in Steph? Does Steph become Steph? Right? That's like a pretty fair question.
Well, because it was really Mark first. So Mark got Steph and basically was like, yeah, I'm going to, you know.
Mark who?
Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
you're right.
So Mark had the opportunity to basically create the environment around Steph. But again, if you watch those old Davidson highlights, I think any high IQ basketball mind knew that he would have been this effective. And the only reason is because he can shoot from anywhere. Yeah. And quick release, quick trigger. So you mean to tell me you can't put somebody who literally is this good of a shooter on a court with, you know, like the knock on him was he's small, he's not strong enough, is he going to be able to get a shot off?
But the game was different at that time. Like they were knocking him for his defensive ability.
But he changed it.
He changed the game.
Steph changed everything.
Totally. And I agree with everything that you're saying, but the big concept that I want to take away from our podcast today is like, fucking belief, man. Like there's 450 jobs in the game in the NBA. But it's like, what happens along the way? Like you and I remember Jameer Holland.
Yeah.
That guy was the fastest guy in the country.
Yeah.
Our sophomore or our junior year of high school. I remember him coming into the gym, fresh off smoking a blunt, higher than a kite, and he was like, "Hey, bro, watch this." And he jumps up, puts a quarter on top of the backboard. This guy's 6'3", fastest guy in the country, ran like a 10-1 100-meter dash on a dirt track, and like nobody knows who he is.
Freaks of nature, bro. That's what I'm saying. Like it just I wished we had cameras. That's all. I low key wish like just that last 2008 year, man. Like people had to. I wish people saw like or knew, but it also like because we share that history, right? That experience hasn't been told yet. Like you're this platform, what you're doing, the whole storytelling element, right? Is so important. You know, and I truly commend you for opening and creating these spaces. But there's so much that. Because we were the generation that got to go outside and play outside and, you know, climb trees and play tag, you know, with other kids and run around. And then it's like we also got to go inside and we had this Nintendo and Sega and computers and, you know what I mean? It's like these stories are important. Like this like our generation, like the millennials, like our age group right here, like as technology continues to, you know, and content is now just, it's everywhere, right? There's stories everywhere, right? Who's taking the time, right, to offer their experiences, right? Create a platform for themselves, but then offer these experiences and bring people back with shared experiences to say like, all right, well, this is something that is practical, it's tangible. Like this conversation, you can get stuff from this and literally apply it. You know, you can apply KYG, KYP today. It's just it's just a hard look in the mirror. It's all it is.
Honestly, dude, I use it every day with clients.
Yeah, I do too. I use it. I say it almost every day. Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, again, this is you don't know. You don't know who's going to be watching this. You don't know who we're going to connect to, who might hear this and say, you know, let me reach out, right? And then how that door might lead to something else. But it all starts with being selfless. It all starts with belief, right? You have a sense of belief in others, but, you know, like you said, like you put a camera on me, I know what I'm about to do. Like you got a sense of belief in yourself. It takes time to build that. It takes reps. It takes, you know, failures, mistakes. Like ultimately, like you got to be as well-rounded as possible. So if you're not looking at it from a, you know, it's not just forward. You got to be able to go back. It ain't just, you know, depending on how you look at forward and back, that could also be left and right. Depending on how you look at that could also be up and down. You got to be able to scale how you're looking at any and all situations in multiple dimensions to be able to get the best picture of, you know, how you can offer, you know, anything to this situation to improve it, to impact it. You know what I mean? It's deep, but I get deep.
You're an artist, man. And I think you live that. You lived that as a basketball player. If you could summarize your basketball career, how would you kind of put that into words for people? It's a heavy one.
If I could summarize my career, I would say, you know, somebody who grew up, you know, in and around the game with, you know, an active family member. My dad, you know, he's a veteran. It's very easy to think, again, like I was given handouts, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
Basically, I had to put the time in. I had to persevere, you know, through injury, through self-doubt, through expectation, just through everything. So, you know, I'm really a dog. That's all I come down to. It's like either you know or you don't know. And at this point, the transferable skills, because I have such a confidence in my game at this point in my life that again, I'm not here to prove anything. That, you know, I can't tell anybody anything, and that'd be proof.
I can, though. I can talk about the amount of times you and I threw up at the Santa Monica stairs.
But what I'm saying is, I can't prove it. I have to show people.
Totally.
I gotta show people through my actions. Like, it's always been me. So again, like, my summary is one in that, you know, the game taught me how to, you know, think as, you know, recognize what the transferable skills that I learned were, but then having the capacity to apply it. So that, you know, I'll leave it on this, right? Like, it's one thing to acquire information, but it's another thing to apply this information. And people, you know, I think they get content just by saying, oh, I have this info.
What'd you do with it?
But what are you doing with it? Exactly.
I love that. I love that you said that you're a dog, because I love the way Coach Prime talks about on his team. He's got leaders and he's got dogs.
Yeah, no, it's,
you know, leaders are the vocal guys, and then the dogs are the ones that go out and show it.
Well, I'm both. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm a lead. I say it all the time. I'm a leader, but I am a dog. Like, it's nothing that, like.
That's why you're LD.
Yeah.
Dude, looking back, I can't help but make note of Coach Shim.
Shimmy.
You know, the behind the scenes mastermind, kind of keeping Derek in check, and, you know, teaching me when I was on, you know, probably the third team on nobody's radar at the time, and trying to work my way up into the starting five. Just the attention to detail, like stuff that is not really looked at. People thought like Taft was all talent, but it was like, nah, man, we were doing fingertip push-ups. Like, we were understanding angles. We were understanding how to take charges, and it wasn't just about all gas and no brakes. It was understanding meticulously how to read the game, how to play the game, how to communicate with each other. And it was a special time, man, and the bonds that I'm trying to recreate now, you know, in my communication strategies. I just saw Javale Boykins, another awesome talent that was a part of our staff.
Shout out my boy Javale.
Awesome dude.
Javale.
Like, we've got some just really cool friendships and relationships, and
Surely.
my hope is that these conversations can really inspire and educate the next generation. And as we wrap things up today, Larry, what's next for you, man? What are some of the cool things that you're working on that are playing ping pong in between your ears?
Man, you know, I've left a lot of space for myself to kind of figure that out. You know, I retired in 2018, and I knew I had the opportunity to almost, you know, follow suit like my father, and, you know, kind of jump right into like coaching or become a scout or even become an agent, you know, help players, you know, just navigate life, you know, as a professional athlete, and helping them facilitate deals, talking to teams and what have you. But it all seemed a little bit too structured for me. Like, I've come from like this sense of like structure, right, my whole life, and being on like this kind of a path, right? And with all of this knowledge and my experiences, and me feeling like, okay, yeah, I have transferable skills, and I want to prove that I have, you know, I'm more than an athlete. Yeah, you know, as cliche as that might be right now, and shout out to, you know, Uninterrupted, but I wanted that. I wanted to not just be able, I didn't want to just be boxed. You know what I'm saying? So I look at the evolution of the game of basketball. I look at college, right? College sports and marketing and, you know, me being a facilitator and having all these relationships, you know, where can I be the most impactful? You know, I've got my eye right now on like the NIL market in looking at how maybe I can help, you know, my alma mater, UCLA.
Go Bruins.
Yeah, go Bruins. You know, pick up a little bit on their NIL program.
Just to give people context, the NIL is now contractual agreements for a lot of athletes within the high school and college age, capitalizing on their name, image, and likeness. And that's to ensure that they have direction, they have a place to monetize, they have a place to allow their money to grow, and they're not just getting taken advantage of by big corporations or people trying to capitalize on the attention that they may have personally, individually, their family, or their social media. And so Larry's really taking a leadership role to co-pilot the journey of some of these people in relation to his alma mater, UCLA, to help give them the tools, the access, the education, and the network to then facilitate a positive experience, as opposed to...
I might need to use you to like for some as like a writer. Yeah, keep going.
I would love to help in any capacity that I can. I observe it. I try to listen to it a lot. I am by all means not an expert, but what I really like is just going back to the trust. You've lived this. I've lived this. We've all watched Air. We've seen shoe deals happen, not happen. I mean, Charles Barkley talked about it the other day, about how Michael Jordan helped him understand, the process of equity as opposed to just taking a contract. And we've heard story after story. I mean, we've seen the challenges with Reggie Bush. We've seen the challenges with other big notable players. And just like you, man, I'm an observer, I'm a supporter, and I really admire what you're doing to then take a leap. It would have been easy to just be like, hey, I'm just going to go coach, or I'm going to go do this thing. But it's like, you have this intrinsic desire, and I'm always a big fan of people in pursuit of what lights their heart on fire. And it's honorable, man. It's courageous. It's scary. Being an entrepreneur is not easy, man.
I mean, but this is me, KYG.
Yeah, know your game. That's you.
And even though, like, you let some people tell it, they'll tell you why you need to follow a certain suit or you need to do things a certain way. According to the information that they have, but that's why it's important to talk, because, I have information that other people might not have, right? You don't necessarily know what I see or how I think or why, what the motivating factors are. My intent, I think, allows me to not necessarily second guess myself once I do make a decision, to act. And again, me. So when I say I'm selfless, it's like, it's one thing because you remember me being selfless, like in real time. But then it's like, if I'm, talking to somebody or pitching something or looking to like partner, create some kind of a deal structure, I can't just walk up to somebody and be like, yeah, I'm the selfless person, because in business and court, everybody is pitching it's social media. They're only going to portray the very best. So it's like, it's not a game. It's not corporate. You can't wait for some shit to hit the fan for somebody to see like what somebody's made of, because by that time it's like, again, there's not as many possessions in corporate, right?
The way I see it, man, is the world is now your canvas. You have a paintbrush in your hand, and you're seeking the words to now share with the world the unconscious competence that you've developed in the last 20 years. Things that you have instinctually, intrinsically, that I've been able to feel as a teammate and an observer and a fan and a friend. Now it's just finding the right words that sit with the right people.
Exactly.
Because the skills are already there. And so it's such a pleasure to be able to spend time with you and hopefully help articulate this, lay a roadmap, create some opportunities, and have some fun spitballing down memory lane.
Yeah. It's been a great time. I mean, look, Bryce, like I said, bro, we don't always talk. We haven't been in, the closest of contact, but, the experiences that we've shared can't be, they can't be erased, right? And again, because we've shared moments in the trenches, we have a respect and a knowledge of one another, but, just even in watching your development and evolution, I think that, this is great. And I'm super proud, of you. I'm happy to be here, but I'm also happy to continue supporting you in any way that I can. I feel like, the more conversations that we can open up, the more stories that we can bring to the, to the table and begin to, share with others is ultimately what's going to create the kind of network, the kind of community of like-minded, people, groups, that we want to see and that we want to be around. And ultimately at this part in our lives, at least for me speaking, this is what's most important.
Yeah. And there's so many stories that the world needs to hear, man. We have some
sure.
special ones
sure.
that were behind the scenes. Last thing, man. What's the best advice that you've ever received? Whether it's from your father, a friend, maybe from a coach. What's something that really stands out as like a pivotal piece of information that has really shaped your life?
Ooh, you know what? I mean, I don't want to be repetitive. I feel like, again, like the KYGs and the KYPs and the, I got so many sayings. I feel like in coaches I've played for, and people who have kind of just been able to articulate messages that stuck with me. But I'll leave it with this. Actually, I can't. I want to. I have a great one, but
throw it out there and I'll bounce off of it.
Okay. It's a Derek quote. I don't know if you want me to go there.
Go there.
Okay, I'll go there.
No limits, man. That's how you and I have always operated.
I was gonna say I just feel like it's only right that I ended on a Derek quote, but one of my favorite quotes from Derek would have to be. I think you kind of alluded to it, but if you play pussy, you will get fucked.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thought process in the sense of like, the world will take advantage of vulnerability.
Yes. If you don't have the appropriate fear right here in this time, and again, it's not about thinking. You got to let your instincts take over, right? And you can't be afraid to let your instincts take over. That's, I think, more so what it means to me.
It's so fun, too, because modern day, everybody's offended by everything in the words and this, that, and the other, and things are pulled out of context. But we were at a time where it was so raw that, like, I mean, dude, you remember Derek grabbing me and cussing me out 17 ways from sideways for this, that, and the other, or a bad pass, or, not being over on help side. Yeah. And I deserved every bit of it.
Of course.
But now I'm, like, pretty calloused to it. Like, I'm not as offended as I probably should be to things, and I'm just like, they're just words. And like Joe Rogan talks about, he's like, words are like noises coming from a mouth. We don't go to the zoo and, like, get offended.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, we have to go back to commonality in finding where there's a sense of commonality, right? Words are words, and people do like to, again, it's about respect, but these are, words are spells, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you know how to articulate your words, if you know how to rearrange them and put them in a way, and then you add a certain cadence to these words can unlock doors. Yeah. And so we have to.
It's a special verbiage and an art. And as we wrap things up today, man, like the best advice that I ever received was actually from my father. And he said, be unrealistic. And that's my hope for you, is like, don't allow the narrative that the world has placed on you to indicate who you are as a human being. Don't allow whatever psychological stories have lived rent-free between your ears to rule your future. The past is the past, the future is the future, but you're in the now. You have the opportunity to write that next page. And just to give you and hopefully other people context that maybe don't know this story, that's how this podcast started. When he was diagnosed with brain cancer, I was leaving San Diego and I'd go up to LA and I just spent time with him when he was awake. And I was like, man, I know this guy's my father, but he had this whole life before I ever existed. So I'd ask him, hey, what was Vietnam like? What was dating my mom like? What was this and that like? What were you thinking about when I was playing basketball? What were your thought processes? And just kind of picking his brain. He was only supposed to live 4 months and he ended up living 12. And I just remember like getting the raw thoughts, not like, trying to be warm and fuzzy towards me. Just like, no, tell me how you actually thought.
The real.
And it was just like, be unrealistic was a big thing that I pulled. And I hope that resonates with you and your future developments. I hope that resonates with your family, your mom, your brothers.
I feel like unrealistic in the sense of, having a sense of fantasy, right? Yeah. Like
a childlike imagination.
I'm more so imagination than fantasy, right? But yes, having an imagination, like I definitely feel like my imagination has been probably my greatest secret weapon. is that I'm able to imagine and see things that aren't necessarily there yet, but I'm very keen and I'm aware, right, that this is me imagining this right now. But I believe if you can see something, right, like, why can't you create that? Why can't you build something? Though it may take time, though it may take resources, though it may take sacrifice and discipline, all these words and concepts, right? But is it possible? Yeah, with a certain sense of unrealistic, expectation, but
Totally.
it's there.
Today was special, man.
I love it, bro. I love it. We can come back and do it again.
I look forward to it. We'll definitely need to do a part 2.
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the best point guards to ever do it. One of my favorite facilitators, Larry Drew Drew Jr. on Instagram. He's Larry Light. And former professional basketball player, current entrepreneur, unlocking incredible things with the NIL and future developments. I'm so excited to see you continue to pursue your peak expression. And thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate you, bro. I'm excited too. We'll definitely stay in the loop, stay in contact, but just keep being you. Just keep being you. I love it.
It's awesome, man. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed my conversation with Larry Drew Jr. today, please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And remember, greatness is forged, not found. Until next time.